What do you think is going to be prioritized here, Taka?
Oh, without a doubt, Yamoja. She's got to be one of the first to be
Immediately banned.
eliminated. Either whoever's in the first pick position is never going to be the one that has to ban it, but when you look at genetics, when you look at Rongyu, so many similarities in terms of those choices, and it seems as though the Kings, I mean, they don't even want to waste any time. They're just going to take Yamoja away, despite the fact that genetics is more than competent on that pick. It's just as though the Kings just really want to prioritize elsewhere, and the Circuit ban as well, so it seems the Kings are largely just eliminating flex options.
And trying to control a lot of what we've seen be successful for the Leviathans in the past. Tiamat or Longshin, both of those feel very, very focused though as well. That is Twig to a T, and that's BMT as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Tiamat so far in this event do absolutely amazing stuff. Paul just put on an absolute show, giving the Leviathans a timely reminder that they shouldn't be giving that one up. Big Man Tings won't be able to pilot that. And Erlang, I think, really is a great god for Twig just because his kit suits Twig's style so well. He wants to be a primary initiator. He wants to apply a lot of CC and control the early game. And that's exactly what Erlang does.
Well, the Odin gets banned out here alongside the Circuit and the Yamoja for the Kings. The Leviathans have the Erlang and the Tiamat waiting for their third ban. But, you know, the Odin Taco makes sense. That's kind of like the grand scheme. Yeah, everybody's not dealing with it. Amus and Cobb has been really solid. One thing that we saw from the Titans in their first game, granted it didn't win, but it's something that the Kings loved going to, was that Khepri. It's maybe not a first pick option, but that is something, I mean, like, is that on the mind right now for genetics?
Without a doubt, I think that Khepri is a Guardian where, contrast to Geb, he has a little bit more lane pressure and bully potential. Early on, Geb, I think, can kind of struggle, which is why we've seen him fall a little bit more out of favor to this current meta. But the Odin ban is just smart because these are both teams that are capable of running hell, and that's definitely one theme that has continued to surface throughout these tournaments towards the semis and finals aspect, is that teams that play the healers, I think, pose a much larger threat, and sure enough, the Odin ban, you have to immediately assume that it's going to be an immediate pickup for the Hell. Olorun, however, still up for grabs, and a lot of power picks as well between Achilles, Amus and Cobb, another one, and just lots of pressure, I think, is going to be the theme here.
Now, a 100% ban rate up to this point. We've had a 3-game set, 2 4-game sets. Hell has not been allowed to see the light of day. And now the Kings get it. And Hazer, normally I'd be lamenting and talking all about Hell mid, things like that. When they have played this, more often than not, it's gone to variety. That's something that means it's got a flex potential for them. And it's been such a powerful pick in the past.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see if they have this as a flex. If the set goes on and we see maybe this Hell doesn't dominate, we might see Hell more than once. We might get to see it in a couple different roles for the Kings. I think that's a really powerful flex, actually. I think flexes in general are powerful. Yeah. We saw the Achilles flexed in the last set going to 2 different roles. And I think it just gives you a lot of space in your drafts as RTO comes through in the solo lane. Hardcore, I think this has been banned away from him in almost every game so far.
Yeah, this is one that, for the longest time, this team won a good chunk of. I think they have, let's see if I can find it, at least 22 games played with it, 18 wins throughout the year. That's pretty good, as it turns out. He does not lose
a nice stat.
on this god too often. But it is, again, the threat of having to deal with the healer, right? RDO brings in a little bit of healing, Taco.
One thing that's important to note when you're dealing with these types of healer compositions, especially a god like Hell, you want easy and steady application of anti-heal potential. I think Amus and Cobb 100% can get the job done almost on his own. And when we've been seeing the Amusin picked up, he's typically leaning more towards those Mace style of builds. However, this all-around and best that there is so much pressure and burst already solidified here from the Kings. That is a very potent draft so far.
You get the Soul alongside that. This is one that, alongside of the AMC, it's been flopped for literally every team as to who gets which. And honestly, Shinto's been looking really good on Hunters lately, Hazer, so I wouldn't necessarily argue against that. But now you know that you're going up against this Bastet, this Oleron, plus a Hell in the middle of the team fights. It feels like, at least to me, a little stacked. You had mentioned the Oleron earlier for the Kings.
Yeah, I think this is a great draft by the Kings so far. I think the Leviathans maybe could have been trapped a little bit by this Oleron pick. They played against it with the Bolts. Barracuda, not an Oleron specialist like Netrioid is. Definitely a pick that Netrioid favors over a lot of the other gods in the pool. And I wonder if Zapman's going to have as easy a time as he did against the Bolts on this Sol.
And Netroid's just bobbing his head as of right now. Picks and bans that are going on. So it doesn't feel like there's a lot of stress, a lot of conversation going on. Sobek gets banned out here by the Leviathans. And admittedly, Taco, that goes right in hand with what you were saying. There's already so much that can lock them down, and they don't have a lot of leaps.
Well, the main thing that I kind of am looking at towards the Leviathans, it's almost like they were anticipating a Bastet in that second, third pickup slot, which is why they prioritized this RDO so early on, because I'm almost certain that would have been banned away in the 4th and 5th phase. So the fact that Yarkor or Vrangyu could realistically be running the Bear, it's definitely threatening because it does force a little bit more onto that blink style of play, and you can't really ever bank on the ultimate safety net that Bastet usually has with that pounce.
Well, the Kings seem to think that it's going to be more of a solo lane RDO. With that flexibility, it just keeps things on their toes. There is a ban towards the Terra from the Kings. Eset joins the Sobek on the Leviathan side of things. Again, something that didn't give him a lot of trouble yesterday, but that was mainly when it was being played as support. I see Hell, I see Olorun. Is Eset really that big of a threat right now?
Well, actually, Genetics, back in the day when Genetics was still in
Europe,
Europe, yeah, he loves the Eset support. At least he used to. I don't know if he's got one coming into this event. I don't know if we're going to see it, but it's definitely a pick that he kind of popularized early on. He plays a lot of wacky supports in Ranked, and Eset was one which he went towards a lot, and I think he talked about it a lot, and he said to me that he brought it into the meta, but he does say that about a lot of things, Genetics. I don't know.
Well, they dealt with it relatively easily yesterday when Jake was playing it. We'll see, I guess, maybe throughout this set if it ends up making its way in. Fafnir locked in Taco. This is like a classic combo. You got Soul, you got AMC, you got a Fafnir, you got Smiles.
A classic objective shred focus as well for the Leviathan. Soul and Amuz and Cobb are already two hunters that I think can just naturally shred through a lot of structures and the Fire Giants and Gold Furies on the map, but Fafnir is only going to further enhance that, and I think Fafnir as well is extremely problematic against the likes of a Bastet and Olorun. He can really pose a strong issue with the disarm as well as that Fafnir hammer toss, so it's just going to be up to the Kings in terms of how well they can really position their backlining pieces, because there is tons of dive, I think, for this Leviathan team.
So Hell has been a must-ban so far this tournament. Bastet, Olorun, Nike, not anywhere near outlandish. Hazer, we got a Ymir coming in. We haven't seen Ymir in months competitive.
This Leviathan's draft, essentially double hunter composition with an auto attack jungler and a Fafnir on your side, so objective play likely going to favor the Leviathans, but that's only insofar as the Leviathans get there first. If it's the Camelot Kings establishing defensive positioning, super hard to fight into all that healing.
Yeah, Mifflin, the Leviathans, we saw them play yesterday up against the Olympus Bolts, and it was not particularly close. The Leviathans just played their style of game, and it looked fantastic. The Camelot Kings, the team that qualified to this round of the SWC because of their top 2 performance at the Phase 3 playoff. So it has been a while since we've seen the Camelot Kings play their style of game. But we expect, if they're able to continue the style of play, the momentum that they carried during the Phase 3 playoffs, the Camelot Kings should come out and look good against this Leviathans team. But the question is, you look at the Titans, game 1 against the Scarabs, maybe a little cold, haven't played competitive Smite in the studio for a while. A good opportunity for the Kings to warm up here in game 1.
Yeah, this one is going to be huge for the Kings just to get their feet back under them, get used to that high-stakes Smite yet again.
Right.
But there is some advantages to having taken that long of a break. The Camelot Kings have not shown their hand whatsoever.
No,
we've seen a little bit of what the Leviathans are looking towards insofar as pick strategy, as well as how they've been liking to play the map recently. We don't have any of that for the Kings.
BMT will pull out something that is not unknown to the Camelot Kings in their play style. This Hell has reared her head once or twice. It's been Variety a handful of times. It's been Big Man Tings the other. But BMT pulls out a pick that annoys a lot of people because of the damage and the healing numbers that this pick can output. Always have to then wonder, how does anti-heal look? How do the applicators look for the Leviathans?
And the Leviathans have really good avenues to apply anti-heal. I mean, you've got Shinto with the honey, the bees spread as well if you decide to go towards that Brawler's Feet Stick. I mean, Taco said it best. You can almost just do it on your own. But then you can look at the front line of the Leviathans. Where is Yarkor going to be playing the entirety of these team fights? Wherever Big Man Tings and Netrud are. He's going to be gunning them down. So you pick up maybe a Pestilence or something along those lines, Contagion. it's going to be a lot harder for them to self-sustain throughout these team fights. So I'm not worried about the applicators for the Leviathans, but I am curious to see whether or not the Camelot Kings decide to respond in terms of anti-heal.
That's true.
Especially considering Ardio, as well as double meditation, self-healing from Zapman.
Yep.
Wangyu has a little bit as well.
Yep.
So the Kings can look for an answer.
First bit of action here in this one. Well-timed beads from BMT, and the bees from Shinto fly right by the wayside. Would have been some extra damage. Might not have been enough to get the kill anyway. Actually, BMT, it's not the beads, it's the cleanse. That's what you got to worry about with this hell. You get jumped on, you can cleanse out some of that CC that finds its way in. And so well played by Big Man Tings, holds on to those beads in the mid lane. And it looks like, Myth, looks like Book of the Dead might be the avenue that Big Man Tings is looking for. So talk about an annoying pick anyway. I got one of the most annoying mid lane builds to deal with.
Yeah, he's likely going to pick up a Breastplate of Valor, so additional CDR means he's going to be healing more often, having even more CC immunity for his team. Really want to utilize that defense while you've got it. Otherwise, slowing down your stacks just makes your build that much slower. So keep your eyes on the Leviathans. They are likely going to try and make a play towards the Pyromancer. They don't love their odds in a fight around the Gold Fury because of Netrioid.
Netrioid has beads and ultimate. Uses both. And just kind of wanders away. That's what Sanctified Feud will bring you. But that's a moment I think the Leviathans will be happy with. You just walk at Netrioid, you get beads and ult.
Yeah, so now it's all up to Panatom to make that rotation over and make sure that Netrioid pays for it. Good chunk of damage
Zapman
from Zapman in the tower. So there is a little bit of a trade, you're right. Zapman loses out on some of that CC immunity, but the beads just so much more important. Sanctified Field, a much longer cooldown as well. Now the Leviathans want to keep up this pressure.
They do. It's on the purple buff. Genetics and Netrioid here against 3 of the Leviathans, and the call is to back away. Zapman completes the purple buff invade. In this style of game, Myth, I don't think all that unexpected when you look at these two teams. Good wherewithal, good presence of mind is the word I'm looking for from Captain Twig. Invade some of the right side of the map while Panatom is over on the left invading purple. These are two teams that, you know, all year long have shown us this style of patience, the ability to farm up and keep yourself relevant in the game, and then maybe we start to let the sparks fly towards the mid game. This is not surprising, Myth, I don't think, especially when you get these two teams matched up against one another. We might start leaning towards some mid-game fights where we really see these games tilt.
Yeah, I think both teams can be very confident in their ability to take engagements later on in the match as well. Both scale incredibly well. I am curious to see that the Camelot Kings have elected to go towards a double meditation on top of already having an incredibly heal-heavy composition, further incentivizing an Ankh pickup for the Leviathans. Ankh, of course, if you do apply it and someone picks up some healing all of a sudden, they're taking additional damage going forward as well. Could make it very difficult for the Camelot Kings to use that sustain in some of these team fights.
Zapman extended up in this lane, send some damage Netrioid's way. Wrongyu here hovering as well. Would have been a 3 versus 2, but Zapman able to back away, nice and calm. Now in a composition with a Fafnir, often see a Shogun's Kusari. It's Panatom who grabs it this time instead of Wrongyu. Pyromancer with the first objective pulled. This one's simple. The Leviathans are going to rally around the Pyromancer. They're going to get the first neutral objective of the game. They're going to get the Draugr on the other side for what it's worth. And the Gold Fury still stands. So there's no answer back from the Camelot Kings on left. That one quick, straightforward, easy for the Leviathans.
And the Kings are just biding their time.
Takes a chunk of damage there from Netrioid and the rotation in from the Camelot Kings. Nothing more to be had. The Gold Fury like a beacon on the left side of the map. Moths to a flame. The Camelot Kings are there, but the Leviathans answer in kind. You would imagine the Leviathans are the ones shredding this objective, but it's the Camelot Kings, the ones that have started it up. It is down beneath half HP. Leviathans close by. The first solo laner that'll be here, that's Variety. Sanctified Field down. Camelot Kings secure the Gold Fury, and we scatter to the wind.
The Leviathans play that one very passively. The Camelot Kings hold on to the objective, and there really wasn't that much threat of a steal. The Leviathans hovering outside the range of the fight. One Sanctified Fields is dropped very late by Netrioid. Great usage from this Oleron to control that space. There really wasn't much recourse for the Leviathans. I think it was an active decision, considering Yarkor really was very, very far behind Variety on the rotation. The Leviathans just did not love their odds in that fight.
This is smart from Captain Twig mirroring Panatom. I mean, the smallest bit of pressure, just Gilgamesh being on the left side of the map. But Captain Twig will be here to relieve some of that. That was an early rotation from Variety as well. I think the Camelot Kings were just buying some insurance. The Nike had already made its way to mid lane by the time Yarkor was rotating out of solo there, so had
their comp. Maybe the Leviathans could be forced into a position, if they want to fight, in just raw pulling the Fire Giant, forcing the hand of the Kings.
I was gonna say, at some point, if you want to fight, you just pull the FG, right? I mean, there's ward coverage for the Leviathans down. Camelot Kings rotate in. Now Pyromancer has taken A whole lot of damage. Yarkor is here as well. Variety up and over. It's the Ardio against 4. Stunned down on a Captain Twig. Yarkor receives one as well, but the Fire Giant, that's pulled. It's doing a lot of damage to this Ardio. Sustain out on the back line from Big Man Tings. We are scrapping here around the FG pit. Winds of Shamash is huge from Panatom. It's gone on to 3 of the Camelot Kings. Yarkor finds first blood 17 minutes in.
Off goes Massive. Nobody on the Kings is healing, and the Leviathans are surging.
Zapman, big time ultimate. Leviathans find 2. Variety down. Genetics gone. What's the immediate call here? It's a regroup and back up.
Twig?
And no pull on the FG. Twig goes down. You imagine they do. The Leviathans will pull it anyway.
Fire Giant going to be burning very quickly here. Netroid nearby can start to work his way in. I think the Kings have to look for this.
Oh, Fire Giant's low. Yarkor separating it out. Sanctified Field down, but the FG goes to the Leviathans nonetheless. Twig rallied in to his ADC's ultimate. He will jump in, jump out. Zapman gets a kill onto Twig. The last 2 on the other end of the Dia side of the Camelot Kings. They are running left. The Leviathans have gotten what they came for. FG on 5.
And can they dive further? Netroid sticks around too far in, takes the 1v1 up against Zap, and loses it double for the Hunter on the Leviathans. Fire Giant on all 5. It's the Camelot Kings who start up that fight, Dave. They chose to take the engagement around the Pyromancer when all 5 members of the Leviathans were right around the corner. Where was Netroid throughout the entirety of that fight? He was pushing the left side. The Leviathans knew that the house was in their favor.
Miff, what a difference like 3 minutes makes. Suddenly Zapman is 3-0-1. You got Fire Giant on all 5 of the Leviathans. We're getting our pillows and blankets out, ready to take a snooze after 15 minutes of this one. And the game suddenly erupts. The Camelot Kings walk in around the FG and the Leviathans column on it. For like 17 minutes. We are riding that dead even line in Golden XP, and we have tanked downwards, and it's going to get worse after this Oni Fury gets picked up. We're at a state in the game, Miff, were there enough towers up for the Leviathans to continue to expand on this? This is not a gold lead built out of all the towers on the map going down. It's 2 tier 1s and the Fire Giant and now the Fury. That's great. That's fantastic.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody appreciated it. Look, this is great for Siege. Shinto, Zapman, either one, or maybe even only one, are going to shred objectives on their own. You've got Fafnir, Coerce, that's also going to make it a lot easier. Yarkor has already proven that he is nigh unkillable in these team fights. He kills out 4 people on his own.
Panatom's got the drop kick on Captain Twig, and he has got a whole lot of damage, but look at Twig. He's got to escape the last bit of damage. Not there yet. Zapman from the side. That's a big ultimate from Netroid, but he is alone in his own sanctified field, and that is how he will die. All alone on the right side of the map. The rest of the Kings rally, but they are rallying behind the retreat. Nice wall from Genetics. Slows down the onslaught.
Netroid may have saved his team, but he's the most important piece on this team. You can't trade out your own life on Oleron. Drop Sanctified Field, sure, it's a great team fight tool that was immediately lost, but standing inside of it, you just die.
You might give up a lot here. The Leviathan's a team that love to press down on the gas pedal, and that's what Wrong U's doing. Transformation out. Watch out for the Coerce. Variety jumps into the back line. Genetics burned on through. We are 20 minutes in. We've had nothing for 15, and suddenly the game is on fire. We've had nothing but action for the last 5 minutes. Is this how we end? Is this where this game closes? Big Man Tings with Book of the Dead walks back into the fountain. The Camelot Kings as 3. Netroid up in 1. Titan down to half. Big jump in from Variety, but the damage, it's connecting where it needs to. Leviathans take game 1.
But the Camelot Kings get to save at least a little bit of their dignity.
You're not about to say it. Don't say it.
But they pick up 1, man.
Don't
Come on.
say it. That's all they have to hang their hat on.
That's
One
it.
kill at the
What
end
else
of that
was
game. Miff, we are 15 minutes in.
Yep.
Nothing, literally nothing is
0.
happening. Are you expecting that game to end 4 minutes later?
Not at all. I was really expecting a long, long slog, but
oh my God.
1 macro misplay, singular, on a Pyromancer, cost them, the Camelot Kings, the entire game.
He was crushing it. Just a dominant end game there by the Leviathans.
You're going to notice these highlights don't start until 17 minutes in, and they're going to end very soon after that. But, I mean, Taco, you've got to talk about how not only the front line, the positioning, and the control that they were able to bring, but Hazer brings up a good point. Zap just goes hard.
Now, Zap found his stride as soon as the Leviathans really started charging forward. It seemed as though that 17.5-minute first blood really invigorating the team off that 400 gold bounty, you know, really just went crazy there for the Leviathans. But the fact that we really went 20 minutes, I think that alone kind of announces the primary reason why we've been seeing so much focus around this Hell pick, because you can never really be too careful throughout the duration of that laning phase period. You don't want to allow an opportunity for the Hell or the healer composition in general to pull ahead. If you're able to stabilize and stay even, much like what we saw with the Leviathans here, well, after a certain point, once they found their mid-game area, that was really the control factor for the Leviathans. I think that their mid-game draft was incredibly strong with that Fafnir.
I always love watching the Leviathans cameras at the end of a win, because 4 of them stand up and scream, and Zap just kind of looks back like, yeah, okay, cool, that's 1 on the board. And Hazer, we were talking a lot about that. Like, Zap, it feels like he's just a different person. Actually, honestly, even just talking to him after these sets where he's like super excited about it and like very happy about it, but like in the game, he's just zoned in.
Yeah, I mean, he gets better with age, and he's been here, he's done it.
It's a fine wine.
Yeah, exactly. Age is like a fine wine. Beautiful. Wish I had some wine. But he's doing every World Championship. He does a fantastic job. He comes out and he shows the best of himself. He controls games, and I feel like he's so much more confident.
Going to dictate the King's future in this set, I think, is going to depend pretty heavily on that duo lane matchup. Right now, especially after that Game 1 performance, Zap's got to be feeling himself, and for good reason. He did an incredible job with the Soul. He's been having a fantastic weekend so far even, and I just think that the Kings need to put more priority towards the duo lane, or at least trying to play through that duo lane, giving Netroid some opportunities, I think, to try and really battle back, because if anything, that's more of a confidence blow towards your ADC when Netroid is having to be put in that position where he's essentially just watching Zapman annihilate his whole roster for the last 4 minutes of that game.
It's Yemoja and Tiamat so far. 2 that were banned last time around by these teams. Serket, and that makes it 2 for 2, matching the Kings so far. And again, Hazer, like, it's really weird when you have to draw it back that it comes down to playing, like, play in the game. It wasn't the draft in the least. Like, the draft, theoretically, you put it in a vacuum, put it at a late game 35-minute team fight.
Yeah.
It's actually going to do incredibly well at that point. It is just trying to get there as comfortably as they did. They go for the Amus and Cobb this time, though, instead of the Odin, and that feels like a really big change-up.
Yeah, an interesting switch up here. I think the problem, one of the problems in that game, there are a few problems for the Kings, but one of the problems they had is that they didn't really have pressure anywhere. In terms of the map, the AMC out-pressures the Hell. In the duo lane, the Sol was just at that tower edge the entire time, and Hardcore on the RTO doesn't lose lanes. I don't even know. I don't think it matters what matchup he's in. He's going to win that one. So taking away this AMC gives the Kings the potential to pick up that Hell. But the problem is, now the Odin is available. So do they want to play that Hell and have the risk of her getting caught in a cage? We'll see.
Well, last time around, Taco, Erlong Shin was the first ban for the Leviathans. This time he's going to get completely glanced over. Heimdall taken away, but the Khepri and the Tiamat were the same here. It's going to be Hell first pick once again. But how do you feel about that change-up, not just in the bans, but also the Hell first pick?
Well, Hell first pick is bold, knowing that Odin is still available. And something else, the Kings banned away Fenrir in that 4th, 5th period of Game 1. I'm almost curious if this could be a response of an Odin Fenrir right away for the Leviathans. It's aggressive, it has a lot of dive potential into the likes of a Hell, and they're relatively easy pieces, I think, to kind of fill in the gaps for follow-up.
You can see the coach back there for the Leviathans. It's Artio Erlong hover as of right now. The Ardio's going to get locked in here, and you know what? Again, we talk about it win rate-wise for the Leviathans. Done pretty well, but it is a little surprising, maybe matching up the healing. The Erlong Shen Hazer gets locked in alongside it.
Yeah, nice pick. Panatom and Twig both very capable on this, so going to be a contested pick between the two. One thing I would say is that I quite like the Bastet matchup into Erlang. Erlang really wants to go that early blink for early pressure. Bastet with that ult can punish it. If we see somebody who's as effective with those ults as we saw Scream be previously. Twig, pretty quiet game on the Bastet though, so I wouldn't be surprised if he steps away from it. As we see Izanami Fafnir, brand new duo lane for the Kings, and one with a lot more pressure.
And you had actually, like, both of you were just talking about how they needed more pressure in the duo lane. Fafnir, typically in my mind, I almost immediately associate with a, like, kind of quote-unquote double hunter, like you're going to have some mage carry and then some actual hunter in the game. But Izanami gives a lot of pressure for the duo lane, and that's something that Netroid really needs.
Izanami can struggle against Sol, though, the later that laning phase goes on. Early, you would definitely anticipate it to be more fatal for the Izza just because she has so much outclear potential. But Sol, when she gets that early heat passive going, it's not like Izzy can look for those 1v1s for free. And if anything, this Fafnir is kind of indicating to me that it's going to have to be more play through that duo lane. But at the same time, I have some very big concerns for Fafnir into the RDO.
Sobek gets banned out here, which makes me think that they were taking that away more from Variety than they are taking it to anyone else with Fafnir on the board. Hazer, I guess like overall you're looking at this actually lane matchups because you were talking about hardcore not losing one. How do you deal with an RDO? Well, how do you deal with hardcore? Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I knew, I'd still be maybe over in the booth over there, coaching one of these teams or something, giving it a good go. But that ship has sailed. The REO for hardcore just looks unstoppable. I don't know. It's a really powerful pick in lane, and then it comes through, and nobody seems to be able to do the work in team fights that hardcore does. He picks the perfect targets, he CCs perfectly, and he seems nigh on unkillable in team fights. I don't really know what you can pick to shut it down. Maybe the Sobek is a pick he has struggled against previously. Definitely something the Variety is strong on. If they struggle against it again, maybe they could look to grab that top 3.
Well, that gets banned out alongside the Odin. So Taco, the dreams of Odin getting locked in up against the Hells, dashed, which is a little surprising considering how helpful he can be against her.
Well, to be fair, the Leviathans don't necessarily need Odin to control this Hell, especially if you base things off of how Game 1 went. But this Sobek priority ban, I think, is purely for the fact that Leviathans are just trying to eliminate displacement options for the Kings. Because one thing that I've definitely noticed, when you look at Zapman in a lot of these team fights, he is positioning himself in a way to where the Kings have to commit. And I feel like at times that can even kind of choke point the Kings into an overcommit to try and punish the Hunter or just look for a pick. But if you're investing everything just to kill one person, well, you have to worry about what's funneling into your team throughout the duration of that dive. And I just don't think it's all that easy for Fafnir to do it alone, because this Fafnir, I'd imagine, is more catered heavily towards his Izanami. But I just think a lot of the assets the Leviathans have going for them right now can really shut down that Draconic transformation.
Well, we mentioned the Sobek and the Odin being the final 2 bans for the Leviathans. Medusa and Terra are the bans there from the Kings. Last time it was Terra and Fenrir, but with the Erlong, they seem to be pretty confident in their capabilities of dealing with that. And Ganesh gets locked in alongside that. A long silence and a lot of control that can come with. Dharmic Pillars hits hard in the middle of a team fight as well, Hazer.
Yeah, it absolutely shreds your backline. If you get hit by it, you need to avoid it. Ganesh, though, a character who can be picked off. Rongyu's going to have to be very careful with his positioning. Ganesh typically wants to play back towards that backline with his backline and use that ranged ultimate to initiate fights. Yeah. But if he gets initiated on, can land in some trouble.
That's going to be some struggles they have to deal with. Granted, depending on how much initiation, I mean, I see what Fafnir Hammer right now, like, so they're not too stressed out about it. It depends on what Twig ends up getting here in these final 2 picks for the Kings. Meanwhile, Taco, if you look at initiation on the side of the Leviathans, they've got it in spades.
There are so many teams throughout this Season 8 where they will look to just try and ban gods away from genetics. That has been a heavy focus that the Kings have had to endure all year long. But this right now for the Leviathans feels like a composition where they want genetics to take a pick like the Fafnir so they can punish it accordingly throughout the game instead. And there are just so many anti-Fafnir features here for this Leviathans roster that we talk about the Ganesh being vulnerable, but I think it's more so the Kings potentially playing into a little bit of a trap here for the Leviathans in the sense that they just seem as though they really want to focus out and isolate this Fafnir time and time again and really just prevent him from having any sort of impact on the map.
Identically to what we saw in Game 1. They have got a double Hunter composition.
Am I judging a book by its cover?
That shreds defense, that shreds objectives. This is still a phenomenal objective shred composition. By the way, Game 1, Leviathan's auto-attack jungler. Game 2, exact same thing. Erlang Shen. Out of the jungle, going to do similar damage to Pyromancers, Gold Furies, etc. This time around, though, I think the largest difference is the Camelot King's Hunter. Netroid on the Izanami should be able to establish pressure pretty consistently in the long lane. I'm talking wave pressure, I'm talking objective pressure. So I'm expecting the Kings to try and speed up the pace, at least a little bit.
Yeah, Zapman has to disapparate away.
Oh, whoa!
Oh my god! We are 15 minutes ahead of schedule here, fellas. We do not have this scheduled yet. The Atlantis Leviathans walk into mid lane, and it's first blood to Shinto. as down goes BMT.
Yeah, just probably didn't put enough respect on the Erlang Shen, right? I mean, that's exactly what that god is apt to do. Surprisingly, Panatom doesn't go towards Blink in that first slot, so it's not that aggressive relic that you would have expected to catch the Camelot Kings off like guard early on. It's a beads pickup, but regardless, it is the Leviathans striking first and incredibly fast.
Don't you just feel Zapman wants the chance at a 3-time dash in, beads from Netrioid over the wall as Panatom dodges out the pin, and the med looks like it'll be enough here. Myth, we only got a quick glance at that first blood. Maybe after this disengages a bit, you can see exactly what happens over there in the mid lane. Because without Blink, Myth, that engage from the Erlang Shen has got to be perfect.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe it's a giddy up from Shinto
Twig
that
sees him
shifts up the fight. Yeah, okay. Giddy up is available. Big Man Ting sits on tower line. No, my man's just died, bro. He just stood there.
And if I remember correctly, and I do, I can see in the bottom right-hand corner there, BMT still has beats. Still has beats. Uses cleanse this time.
This is tough.
Still has beats.
Oh,
and
no.
we'll go down once more into the mid lane. Go the Atlantis Leviathans. Let's not let the hell get to late game, I guess. I mean, to be fair to BMT, I'm not sure beads do much for him there. Just delays things out a little bit longer. But seeing a pick that you want in the Izanami to find some pressure, not finding pressure, if anything, the opposite. Camelot Kings looking a little shaky here in game number 2.
Captain Twig takes this 1v1, but the leap back should secure his escape. Panatom, he doesn't even have mannequins. This is a Bumba's Erlang Shen, but he is still playing as if he's the strongest man on the map.
Where's the pin? There it is. There's the knock-up. Come on! You gotta stop. Panatom is doing too much right now. Dash in from wrong you. Knock up, knock to the side.
Okay.
The one maybe would have been enough there from the Ganache. There is some damage flowing through from Zapman here. And purple buff gets dropped down by the Leviathans. They can do no wrong, Myth. When the Atlantis Leviathans can do no wrong right now. Panatom can do no wrong. Everywhere on the map this guy rotates. The gold seems to flow. And the Atlantis Leviathans already 1,000 gold up at 3 minutes.
And the lanes that you would have expected, or at least I would have expected, to establish pressure for the Camelot Kings have yet to do so. Netroid has been getting the worst end of these 1v1s up against Zapman. Purple buff invades have been consistent for the Leviathans. Panatom has been establishing pressure everywhere on the map. Big Man Ting struggling to find his farm at this point. This is tough stuff. Game 1, the Leviathans say, take your hell to late game. I don't care.
Yeah, right.
Farm up for as long as you want. Game 2, they are exterminating BMT with prejudice. This is wild.
He's down 0-2, and it's 2 I'm gonna walk at you style plays. Held on to his beads both times. Again, not sure bead usage makes all that much of a difference, especially on that second one. He was so far on the other side of the lane that Big Man Tings likely goes down anyway. So you're gonna need a little bit more time for that Book of Thoth to get into the back pocket. Book of the Dead, a little bit later on in the build. Panatom just completes his Crusher. Shinto's already got the Transcendence stacking up. Of course, not fully stacked yet. That would be gross. Maybe some pressure from Captain Twig here on the left. Gives the Camelot King some breathing room. Zapman walks on away. Has beads and Disapparate. No real threat.
Yeah, Captain Twig thought maybe about dropping that ultimate at least to burn off that defensive relic, but maybe lucky he held on to it.
Quick reaction from Captain Twig. Wrong you. Has his ultimate. Dharmic Pillars.
Whoa!
Oh my god! Well, that is gross. That is disgusting. The 1-2 punch. And it is literally a 1-2 punch. It's Dharmic Pillars, and then one shot of Centaurus. And Captain Twig evaporates. And the Leviathans will grab another kill on the left side of the map. Shinto is 3-0, 4 minutes in.
Man, the Leviathans were walking around the studio after game 1, and they say, I hear Zapman kind of mumbling, oh, we're so much smarter now. And I was like, all right, you're feeling yourself. But he's just right. Look at this.
Oh, my God. Is it going to happen again? At this point, there's just too much.
No.
There's just too much. That's an up-down from Genetics. And Panatom nabs another. We are out of control. You're telling me in game 1? I mean, come on. This is unfair to me. We're going 15 minutes with nothing in game 1. Now we got 4 kills in 5 minutes. In game 2, set some expectations here, fellas. The Leviathans come out swinging. And I think Myth maybe catch the Kings a bit off guard, because you're right, it's a similar style of draft. Maybe the Kings are thinking that we're chilling for 15 minutes, but the Leviathans have had something else in mind.
You could just lose out on some of this pressure, and that's exactly what happens to Big Man Tings. Once a lane, like mid, loses this much pressure, it makes it harder for Captain Twig to get involved on the map. Genetics doesn't necessarily want to rotate to play in the 3v3 that's already losing. Tough stuff.
Oh man, we're doing this again. Captain Twig and the Dharmic Pillars gets the ultimate. But man, Panatom with another kill. This is
Dude,
is
they're
absurd.
laughing.
Right, as they should be, right? This is the Leviathans. This is the team that since last year in the SPL in the first couple of playoff events that we have had here in Season 8. This is a team that has found no momentum, no pressure in these late game tournaments. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, you find them in like the first round, and then they bow out in like their first opportunity. The Leviathans smell blood. The Leviathans smell the SMITE World Championship Grand Finals. We got at least one more game after this, no matter what happens. But this clean play started yesterday against the Olympus Bolts, and we wondered, is that the Bolts, is that the Leviathans? Right now, it's looking like the Leviathans. They are tearing the Camelot Kings apart. They are 4,000 gold up. 7 minutes into the game. Toxic Blade, next Mifflin, which I think seems like a logical next place to go. You get this auto-attack-centric style jungle, and Toxic Blade will help you out.
You're going to apply a good deal of anti-heal to targets like Big Man Tings, even Genetics. Going to struggle up against that item, as well as just a decent utility stat stick for the Leviathans. But you're right, man. I mean, they've already desynced the timer so well. The Leviathans are going to show up to this Oni Fury and force the hand of the Camelot Kings yet again. I think the Kings find themselves in a similar position at this gold as they would around the Pyro, but it's Netroid dropped low incredibly early on in this engagement. At least gets the beads from Panny.
You would think that the Dark Portal hit Netroid himself when you look at the health bars walking away from that fight. Netroid down to half. Nobody else takes a lick of damage there except Rongyu, maybe a little bit. You'd think Netroid somehow dropped that at his own feet and hurt himself. If nothing else, the timing works out for the Leviathans. Netroid has to go back to base, heal back up. Doesn't have Dark Portal for maybe steal potential here. You've got Confirm with Zapman. Can drop those Suns, drop that damage down onto the Oni Fury. Genetics close by, but the Dharmic Pillars are down, and here's the shred from the Atlantis Leviathans. Genetics turns tail, heads on out, and another objective over to the Atlantis Leviathans. Let's do it again, because look, there's only a few minutes remaining on the Pyro. Be the same thing in about a few minutes here if the Leviathans are able to rotate through these neutral objectives once more.
The Kings to the Camelot Kings. I think the Leviathans have done a great job of splitting up their aggression, creating avenues of success through multiple lanes, but the Kings legitimately have not grouped up to take these fights just yet.
Or anything, right? I mean, fights, objectives.
Their own buffs.
Their own buffs. The Camelot Kings have died alone 6 times here in this game. Maybe 2 of those kills were in close relation to one another. The Atlantis Leviathans have done as they please. Red buff up. That's a group up now for the Atlantis Leviathans. Guess who's here? Panatom, Rongyu. They're both in range. Captain Twig, maybe with an answer. Equal in levels with Panatom, but Panatom has got the taunt in. Up down from Captain Twig. And that's a 1v1 that Panatom wins. One final shot, but the Dharmic Pillar's perfect. Where's Twig gonna die? Dashinto is the answer, and Rongyu comes in with the assist. Leviathans get 7.
Genetics drops the meditation in that fight, so a good deal of sustain lost out. I think the Leviathans now find themselves in a position where they could just go ahead and group up on the towers. It's going to be a little while until they can feel confident looking towards the Fire Giant, but Tier 1 towers, with the composition that they've got, double Hunter, 1 magical, 1 physical, Shinto and Zapman, you could push just about anywhere you want.
All right, so 15 minutes was our go button mark in game number 1. We're approaching that mark. We've already gone. A couple minutes into this game, this thing started rolling out of control. 4-0 is Shinto. The middle of the map has just not felt great for the Camelot Kings. Jungle, mid, support, none of it has worked out. Ofer across the board there. 1 level differential is Netroid, and I think, you know, Miff, you're right to lean back on that. It's only 1 level down. The XP feels like it could be a lot worse. Unfortunately, the gold, a totally different conversation. And Zapman is gone for this expensive build yet again. Starts ringing the Kate, right up to Hootie after. Use the ultimate to secure the purple buff. Nothing going the Camelot Kings' way.
That could create an opportunity for them to look towards the other neutral objective.
Right.
Likely the Leviathans would go towards the gold, and then the Camelot Kings could at least pick up a Pyro, find something on the map to help them out.
Look, this has just been brutal. I mean, the Camelot Kings have been on the back of a milk carton since 15 minutes in game 1. They've been MIA. We've been looking for them, searching. After a long break, you'd hope that game 1, game 2 would be the turnaround. Dharmic Pillars, 2-man taunt. I'll take that to go, please. It's only the transformation from Genetics that buys him a little bit of time, but there's just way too much on the other end. Double kill for the Erlong Shen. Make it 5 and all 9 kills across jungle and mid for the Leviathans.
And the Leviathans are not apt to stop. It's Yarkor going in deep.
BMT, he'll use the cleanse. Good knockbacks from Variety. We'll shut down Panatom. You get some gold back into the mid laner's pockets. A small glimmer of hope, some happiness for the Camelot Kings here. 16 minutes in, you finally kill the Erlong Shen. Oh, you lose 1, you lose 2, and then you lose your mid lane tier 1.
But will the Leviathans still be able to group up towards that Pyromancer? Zatman's got it pulled out, but the Camelot Kings are nearby and still relatively healthy. This is one of the best fight opportunities they've had so far this game, but elect not, rather, to group up around the Pyro, and that one will go the way of the Leviathans as well.
Wrong you 3/4 of the way back to the Dharmic Pillars. Watch that diamond on the right side of your screen. A snap moment could drop that ultimate down, catch the Camelot Kings off guard. There's still plenty of damage to turn around one of these fights. Shinto left running. And with Fury in 15 seconds, Myth, maybe it makes some sense. We want to disengage, spend up some of that gold, and then do the same thing we've been doing all game if we're the Leviathans. Go back, reset, move to the Fury side of the map. You might lose your tier 1 tower in the meantime, and that's a great infusion of gold for the Camelot Kings. A good shutdown onto Panatom is exactly what the Doctor ordered, especially onto Big Man Ting to get this health scaling up just a little bit.
Hey guys, I've got them all here. Go ahead, do the Primal. And they take it easily, the Leviathans that is, without leaving any risk of the Camelot Kings taking the Fire Giant in turn. The Leviathans are leaving no stone unturned. They're not giving the Camelot Kings any opportunities.
Every ounce of the map has been taken away by the Leviathans. Even outside of these big neutral objectives, the back camps have been pressured by the Leviathans all game long. And out is the Fire Giant. Another sub-20-minute FG is under threat here. Genetics close by. He is silenced and he is deleted. Shinto still 5-0 here in this game. And Yarkor spies an opening. Centaurus, sometimes used defensively? Yeah, right, says Shinto. I'm going to look for some kills and a little bit more damage. Leviathans find a pick. They're going to go right back to the fire.
The Kings can re-sustain a fair deal with Big Man Tings. Twig does not necessarily have to back, but maybe he should have. Fire's going quick.
Fire Giant will go down. Those are the types of moments where the games can be stalled out. Say Variety's able to jump in, make a play, steal the fire. That's when these games can be pulled right on back. This one, not the case. No chance for the Camelot Kings. The Atlantis Leviathans up 10-1 in kills and up 9.3 thousand gold. 20 minutes in, there are still 3 tier 2 towers on the map. Fire Giant for 3.5 minutes. Well, it looks like it's going to be getting a little bit worse before it gets better.
Well, silver lining.
If it ever gets better
for the Camelot Kings. So, you know, the tier 2 is going to be a little bit tanky. One at all. And it was only 20 minutes ago, so I'm sure you do. This is the point of the game where this style of composition for the Leviathans is exactly built for.
Don't tell me it's supposed to start working now.
Oh, yeah. No, this is a siege comp. This is a siege comp. They've got double Hunter comp. They've got Panatom, Yarkor, and Rongyu on space creation. And the Camelot Kings, their draft is not very well suited towards base defense.
Realize what you just...
great DPS. Their AoE's lacking. This is tough.
Realize what you just told me. Please. Now this team is supposed to work.
Yep, this is it.
This is where the Leviathans are supposed to do well.
That's what they drafted for.
Well, they're supposed to do well anyway when they're up 10,000 gold, but compositionally, I guess they've made their plays where they need to, and now they can kind of strangle out the Camelot Kings over the next few minutes. I mean, it's very apt that you say it's villainous, because that's literally the point that was made in the last few Star Wars movies. The Planet Destroyers are here. They're the King Destroyers in the first 2 games of this set. Fire Giant goes down quietly, and the Atlantis Leviathans, maybe one more push to get this game done. You talk about power spikes, it's a full item that Shinto is now over Big Man Tings, and it's a Titan's Bane. That doesn't feel fantastic. If I'm any of the frontliners of the Camelot Kings, the dive, I just simply think cannot happen. You're hoping, Myth, that a Phoenix, a Titan, can be that unofficial 6th man and might tilt the scales.
I think it's got to be a Phoenix, and I think it's got to be this one. Once the Camelot Kings give an inch here, just one lane, the Leviathans will take every single other one.
Netrioid around the left. He is on his own. Of course, he can dash back into your base. Have no worries, friends. Netrioid can make his way back into his base should he choose. But instead, eyes are on Shinto. There's the dive, but you have not deleted the Chiron. He will get out and he will stay alive, and the rest of the damage flows through. Variety, say goodbye to this game as Zatman melts him away. It's a jump out from Genetics as well, and the Phoenix will burn on through.
We'll see if the Leviathans go for the end, but you got to think they won't. They're crushing hope, Dave. They're going to go ahead and get every other bird. The Camelot Kings nearly have the dive to shut down Shinto, but just not enough damage output. This hell can't dive that deep. Her damage doesn't go that far, and the Leviathans, they resustain.
Shinto holds on to his Aegis. Centaurus used defensively this time, keeps him on the map. And on over to the left Phoenix go the Atlantis Leviathans. It is villainous, isn't it, Myth? They can just roll up on the Titan. It feels like at any moment here they got a small wave over on the right side of the map that will be dispatched quickly by the Camelot Kings Titan Leviathans as 5. Zapman, big chunk of damage here, uses his beads on the back of the fight. Dharmic Pillars rallies a few of the Camelot Kings, and there is good damage into the front line of the Atlantis Leviathans, but that is damage they are happy to take. Left side Phoenix, it is gone. Zapman will use the Aegis, jump in, jump out from Captain Twig. Genetics and Netrioid, they're on the re-engage. Transformation out from Genetics, but Panatom playing bodyguard.
We'll see if Genetics can connect some CC. Stun, no
they're
good. Panatom, can he turn?
Oh, it's a double taunt in from Panatom. Dark Portal, no good. Big man Tings deals the last bit of damage. What is the cost, though, from the Camelot Kings? We have paid for 2 kills with all 3 of our Phoenixes.
All 3 Phoenixes and the Leviathans still have a minute and 30 to play with this Fire Giant. Maybe just call it a minute because Zapman about 30 seconds away from his respawn. If the Camelot Kings can return just one bird to the Leviathans, that could be an avenue, a silver lining, a glimmer of hope in the cosmos. That's a Star Wars reference, I suppose. But that
it
window
happens in space.
is dwindling. It's dwindling. We're 10 seconds left on Zapman? Yeah, the Camelot Kings, they can't even pick up a Gold Fury, Dave, because the Leviathans already did it.
Yeah, are you allowed, I mean, can I just say the word space and have it be a Star Wars reference, I guess?
I think that's more of a
Anything
Star
space
Trek.
related. You're right. Go boldly where no man has gone before, or something like that. I don't know.
Who said that?
Less of a Star Trek guy, admittedly, than I am a Star Wars guy. At any rate, the Atlantis Leviathans will respawn. They will head back to the FG, you would assume, in about a minute's time. I think
the Leviathans more so take the Fire Giant just so the Camelot Kings can't think, all right, well, if we defend, we get the fire. No.
Right, hope and all that. Right.
Yeah, no, they're crushing. They're crushing hope.
We're crushing hope in game number 2. Camelot Kings eyes on game 3. Outside of a miraculous play, Variety might be able to make happen. No, he heads back towards the mid lane. Right and mid Phoenixes go down. All 3 Phoenixes likely will be back up. That's at least some good news here for the Kings. Left side just a few moments behind, but it's full pushed up by Netrioid. Both mid and right have since respawned, but with how far ahead the Leviathans are, it's just a couple auto attacks away from going down. The question then becomes, where do we make our final stand here for the Camelot Kings? Draugur's here, but as we said last time, won't make much of a difference.
Hey, they were able to nearly drop Shinto in that last team fight,
right.
So defending on the Phoenix, not the worst look for the Camelot Kings. Anywhere that isn't your Titan room, probably a good place to make your stands.
Variety silenced out by Rongyu, drops that shield. Phoenix, before my eyes, it's missing. Captain Twig, his disengage gets used. Dark Portal down from Netrioid. That finds some good value. Dharmic Pillar separates out the fight. First kill of the fight goes to Captain Twig, but here's your second win. The Leviathans rallying around their jungler. Big man Tings buys his time. Panatom from range grabs the double.
Netrioid, Captain Twig, Variety, no ultimates available with Yarkor removed and Panatom and Zap dropped low. Can the Leviathans look towards the end? It's yet to be seen.
Yes, they can. They can look towards the end. They can look towards game 3. Going up 2-0, the Atlantis Leviathans have played clinically. The Camelot Kings have had no chance in game number 2 outside of the first couple minutes. We are waiting on a minion wave. We could take a deep breath for a second. We don't have the sustain of BMT. We don't have the engage, the jump in from Genetics. That is 15 seconds away. And this Titan's health bar will not last 15 seconds.
Well, maybe if the Camelot Kings keep this posturing up, the Leviathan's showing a whole lot of respect here. Genetics only 8 seconds away now, and the Titan's not taking damage.
Dharmic Pillars down on the Titan. Variety.
Never mind.
Twig, they jump onto Shinto. But it's the Titan. We've got to keep our eyes on. The Atlantis Leviathans make, I would say, quick work. This one goes 30, right? It's a little bit longer than game number 1. But the amount of time that this game was in question was like 4 minutes. And
the Oni Fury to make sure they have the fire minions pushing when they're doing FG. They're just doing everything so cleanly and so by the book. And the CC chains that came out in that game were criminal, illegal. I don't know. That shouldn't be allowed. Please don't do that to me in my ranked games.
Something you need to be worried about. But Taco, I mean, it's just clean. And you've got a question. Actually, first off, watch Rongyu. Rongyu's popping off. And look at Zap, who was right next to him. That was my favorite thing. Like, Rongyu stood up screaming hype, and Zap just kind of silently held up a fist for a fist bump, and that was his excitement. But, like, this was, again, such a clean game. We talk about what this hell can bring and the fact that she's now got a 100% pick ban. She was 100% banned into the set. It doesn't look like it's really warranted anymore.
And that particular CC chain that we just saw performed against Genetics was my main concern that I saw when this Leviathan Straff was coming together, initially speaking, and it's just Bastet, although she's been very highly regarded since her most recent rework, it just hasn't really been much opportunity for Twig to really try and get the down, and the Kings choose to just try and get away with this farm style of play. It's just not going to work against the Leviathans.
You can see the Kings feeling a little out of it, but I saw some conversation still going on in there, so Biggie doing his job trying to get these guys out of it. Going down 2-0, but in this fashion is definitely something that is difficult to dig your way out of. 20.6k damage from Shinto. Plus, he was 5-0. You got 7-2 there for Panatom, and they were 6,000 separated. It seems like Shinto Hazer is a significant problem, and honestly, it's in pans for game number 3. Leviathans are 1 away. And for the first time this set, they're up in the first pick position.
Here's what I'm terrified of for the Kings right now is if the Leviathans choose to let the Hell go through one more time, or if the Kings don't look to priority ban it, if the Leviathans take Hell and manage to close out game 3 with something that the Kings have failed to do 2 games in a row now, that is a tough blow, I think, for any team. Even if it meant the end of the Kings' run here for Worlds, it's just one of those, anything you can do, I can do better circumstances. And I think more importantly, the Kings just need to try and stalemate this out to a point where we can actually feel as though there is valid team fighting going down between both these teams, because right now, 2 games in a row, it just seems like it is all Leviathans.
I mean, you talk about it, the Hell, the Emoja ban that the Kings have been going for comes to my mind. They've been getting rid of things like the Circuit, the Amus and Cobb next to it. It feels really awkward when you're the Leviathan, or I should say when you're the Kings here, because you know the Leviathans are going to get something, Hazer, that is just such a high priority. And when you look at all of the players, like, I don't want Shinto to have Hell. She's in the top 5 most banned gods against the Leviathans for good reason.
Yeah, Shinto definitely nuts on that pick, and the Kings recognize that. They say, we're not doing well with it, but we don't want Shinto to have it either. I quite like that decision, because if they let the Hell through and Leviathans don't first pick it, do the Kings pick it top 2, or do they then give 2 really good picks to the Leviathans despite being on that first pick side? So they get rid of it, and they remove the Sol. Zapman gonna have to do it on something else. He has been really, really good on the Sol, so I like that switch up, and RTO actually banned by the Leviathans.
Which I think, you know, it kind of goes back to exactly what you're saying, right? Like, we're gonna get 1. You're gonna be able to get 2 here if you're the Kings. So maybe trying to limit it a little bit. They get the Erlong Shin first pick here, Taco, which is probably going to go to Panatom. Had a great performance on it, so no complaints there. Olarun is the answer here for the Kings.
And this is the first time that we're going to get a chance to see the Kings actually run this Olarun. They're also going to go ahead and snag up that Amus and Cobb as well. So 2 pretty desirable backline options and just carries in general. Tons of prot shred available as well, but the primary concern, that early laning phase, definitely pretty susceptible to ganks, especially against the likes of an Erlong Shen, and Leviathans, they even still have the option to go for an Odin here if they so desire.
A lot that can lock them down, and since Odin seems like such a fruitful pick, it might be an easy scoop up for them. Finra was a topic of conversation in Game 1 because it got banned. In Game 2, it was a topic as something they could lock in early on. They're going to do it here. And normally, I don't think of Ronghyu as like the assassin guy, but he's been doing, like, with the Circuit a lot more lately. This Finrear has come through, and Zapman Hazer is going to go to something different, like you said. It's the Freya. Yeah,
I'm slightly surprised he goes towards the Freya here, honestly. That kind of gives the impetus to the Kings in this lane. Olarun just outpressures Freya through the early game. That's the way it is. Freya, once you get that Hasten ring online, can look for solo kills and 1v1s and becomes really, really oppressive. But pre that ring coming online, she's quite weak in the lane. She's really reliant on her 2 being up, and she uses that to clear the wave. So once that's down, she becomes a bit of a sitting duck. The Sobek, we said last time out that it was getting banned every time. If they want it, they have to get it top 3, and Variety hovering it, but then we see a Cabrakan hover instead.
Now, Taco, I don't know if I want to talk about a Cabrakan before it actually gets locked in. But why?
Well, the walls primarily would be the most appealing part, just because something to have some very consistent lockdown potential against the Freya, I think, is definitely something that the Kings are going to have to keep in mind, because while I think Olarun can be a little bit of a lane bully towards Freya, at the same time, Freya, all she really needs is to get the first 2 rings online. As soon as she gets that Telekines, the Hasten, even the Hecate, Demonic, I mean, she can build all 4 rings and still have excellent damage output, as well as her survivability feature off of her ultimate. And I think that the Fafnir choice is rather interesting just because of how Game 2 went for Genetics, but nowhere near as much lockdown as before since the Leviathans don't have that RDO, so not as threatening with the Erlong pin, but I still see a lot of dive between this Fender and Erlong Shen, and definitely some possible early ganks in either mid or duo.
Well, the bans that start to come through, a Respect ban directly on the Chiron alongside a Medusa gets banned out here by the Kings. Leviathans, they take care of the Sobek early on, which is going to limit that solo lane one more pick. Potentially for the last game, it might be 3 for 3. Leviathan still holding on to their last ban. And it does feel, I mean, with the Oleron, Amuz, and Cobb Fafnir, you've got to figure it's either Twig or Variety who next is going to get a shot at them. And it is going to be that Odin pick. It was pretty prominent early on. But Freya also susceptible a little bit to that Odin. So Taco, makes sense to limit that.
Same thing for the Erlong as well. I think that it's just a pick that could really be strong either direction, but
wow.
The Neja for a do-or-die circumstance here for Twig to want to bank it all on the Neja definitely seems like a little bit of an oddball pick, but given the fact that there is consistent beats burn, it might actually work out pretty well here.
Well, it's answered with this Osiris, which we have seen have a lot of great performances so far this weekend, Hazer. I don't know, it feels like, except for the Freya, the Leviathans are getting a lot that's going to help them get online very quickly. And the Freya is only slightly behind. Oh, man. And we get Shinto's Uller. I don't know, man.
Yeah, very, very scary. The one positive, I guess you could say, is that Uller doesn't have a whole lot of options into Neja. Neja can 3 in and look for that ult. But Uller, if he gets the beads, the turnaround burst is real strong. So you've got to be worried about that one. We haven't seen Twig on this Neja since Phase 1, I don't think.
Yeah.
He was running that when Big Man Things was back in Europe. They were running Neja, Kukulkan, and looking for those burst kills. But let's see if he can carry it through like Scream was able to in the play-ins.
And see, that's the thing, though. It was that like constant setup, right? Like, it was always, okay, we've got Rob, we've got Kukulkan, we've got some big wide ult that's going to kill you dead real quick, and I can guarantee you're going to be right there. They don't have that same follow-up as of right now, so I guess we'll see. Sanctified Fields are there. I guess Stinger's a nice amount of damage, but it's nowhere near the same. Naja, though, throws me for a loop. Taco, though, the Uller, mid lane, the Osiris, along with this Freya, it feels like a relatively standard Leviathans draft.
One thing I can't help but note, though, is that Neja and Oleron in the same composition seems a little counterintuitive to each other, because normally you want to fight whenever that Sanctified Field is down, but I feel like with how chaotic team fights can get at times, if Neja's taking one up into the air with Windfire and Wheels, well, I don't know necessarily how well the Kings are actually going to be able to utilize that Sanctified Field after the
great.
fight.
You're going to use my own words against me, Myth, huh?
The Camelot Kings have not shown us anything, and therefore have not shown the Leviathans anything. How can the Leviathans have prepped for this Camelot Kings draft, having been shown none of the details, maybe barring this Oleron? I guess they prepped by picking a lot of pressure on the map and then a late game win condition in the Freya. Seems like a pretty good answer to me from the Leviathans, but that does not go to say that the Camelot Kings have not got a draft that can work similarly in the late game and even in the early. I think Twig has a lot to do.
Netrioid jumped on by Rongyu. Level 2 reached by Netrioid. Zapman there already. And Netrioid will knock back the Fenrir. And there is a hammer from the Fafnir. Good banish from Zapman. Delays any further engage. And all the utility, all the lockdown had already been used, so maybe just some poke damage on the other end of it. But another double magical ADC lane here, Myth. Both paired with what could be some aggressive supports early.
Yeah, Rongyu maybe a little bit more so, but the counter matchup with the Fafnir hammer to stop that brutalize might de-incentivize early game aggression from the Leviathans. Panatom, on the other hand, well, he's here.
So Panatom's here. Shinto's going to rotate around the backside of this fight as well. Netrioid follows up on the stun. First blood is there, and it's Netrioid able to pick it up for the Camelot Kings. Can Rongyu survive on the other end? This would be a miraculous start for the Camelot Kings. They are showing us some life here in the first minute and a half of game number 3. The body blocks are there unless Genetics can find the hammer, and he sure does, but it's a leap on out. Has Zapman done too much? His health bar plenty full, and just needed that last 100 HP or so to get out alive. The Camelot Kings counter-rotate in and find first blood.
Desynced engagement from the Leviathans, but it might not be over. The Camelot Kings posturing for aggression.
No, right? Genetics takes a couple tower shots. Panatom close by just in case.
He's
that
ahead.
little bit of damage from the tower, not enough. Oh, it is a back indeed by Captain Twig.
No.
Vanish onto Netrioid. Double stun to go from Rongyu. Knock up onto Netrioid, and Rongyu re-engages. He will live on the other end of this fight. And now we are chasing down Genetics for the second kill of the game for the Atlantis Leviathans. Jump in, no good, but who needs it? Zapman's got the kill.
Man, that is tough for the Camelot Kings. A great engagement, but maybe an overstay. Somehow Panatom gets sent to the Shadow Realm and then comes back ahead
Sticks around.
of Captain Twig. And then from there, the Camelot Kings lose out on a lot of momentum they would have picked up. But if you want to go back all the way to the start of that fight, maybe we hold that as Yarkor might be walking into 2v1.
Captain Twig gets the sash, gets the stun. Meditation helping out Yarkor here, and the tower will provide himself some safety. So Captain Twig level 2 to Panatom's level 4. We'll take over to level 3, but a little bit of a lead already building up in the jungle. The Erlong Shen for Panatom was worth its weight in gold in Game 2. Looking like it could be the same here in Game 3. Panatom behind Twig. Hits the pin. And look at the range damage. Twig sashes back in. That's the stun onto Panatom. But Turtle Form will get him out and alive.
Surprised to see Panatom not decide to chase that one out. I thought he was holding on to the transformation just until after Variety uses the stun, but instead transform to the turtle. Maybe doesn't like the trajectory that he's taking and instead decides to disengage. I love this strategy, the Leviathans, of just following Captain Twig on the map. Naja, maybe not the most orthodox pick in the current meta, but certainly even worse if you are able to put him pretty far behind.
Pump the brakes for another 9 minutes. See how these teams scale up. Similar maybe to Game 1, but I think the way that the Leviathans play around this Gold Fury will be pretty telling as well, but there is shred potential with Genetics, Netrioid, and Big Man Tings for the Camelot Kings. So both teams need to have that wherewithal, the presence around the Gold Fury. That's a blink in from Rongyu and a jump out from Variety. Fatal strike used, but Rongyu, ever patient, drops Variety right back into the tether of the stun. There on the other end, this is a 3 versus 2, but Captain Twig has got plenty of damage, but there is damage to be had for Yarkor as well. Lord of the Afterlife goes in, but empty-handed are the Leviathans.
Captain Twig, phenomenal peel there to separate that engagement. Big Man Tings makes a late rotation, might be able to catch out Yark.
Stinger finds its way onto Yarkor. There's the sash, there's the kill. The Camelot Kings
More?
showing us some here early in game number 3. Even up the kills and pull that gold lead just a bit further ahead. Hammer no good onto Panatom, and that's all we've got on the right.
Blue buff respawning very shortly. Netrioid, you don't love this 1v1.
Zapman will send some autos Netrioid's way. Valkyrie's discretion was there, but so was Sanctified Field. Wondered if we would see a moment where the old blood takes on the new, but not to be on the left. More scrapping happening on the right. Shinto picks up his own red, and I think that's a worthwhile conversation to have here, Myth. A standard physical hunter matchup in the mid lane, but one that's a bit less conventional from what we've seen. Shinto on the Zuler has shown us wonderful things from this pick in the past. Vanish instead. Panatom over on the right side of the map. Variety has his ultimate, but so does Panatom, and so does Yarkor. Could this Achilles be under a little bit of pressure here? Variety down just a bit, above half HP. Taunted in through, knocked up as well by Panatom. Fatal strike not blocked, but Yarkor's got Lord of the Afterlife and the pin on the other end, and there's a kill for the Leviathans as Panatom makes his way right and gets the first kill of the game for the Erlong Shen.
And even if there was a counter rotation from the Camelot Kings, Rongyu, the guy on your screen, is acting as goaltender. Captain Twig may be walking into a trap.
Could there be a rotation, though, from the rest of the Camelot Kings? Captain Twig pre-beads. Again, it is patience from Rongyu. The Ragnarok won't have the legs to get underneath Captain Twig, though, and so the beads, well worth it by Twig. But is that second guessing? You're making the Camelot Kings second guess where they're positioning on their own side of the jungle just because you don't know where Rongyu is at all times. And it has worked out so far for the Leviathans.
Genetics hovering nearby with Big Man Tings and Captain Twig there. Yeah, it makes sense that Panatom doesn't want to stick around on that Greater Scorpion. With Rongyu just playing so patiently around that Ragnarok ultimate, he gets both resources from Captain Twig. Had he gone for the instant fight, it would have just been beads. Had Captain Twig played a little bit more reactively himself, could have just been the ultimate. But instead, he's taking Windfire Wheels and beads. He has effectively removed Captain Twig from the game.
Is always going to be a good look for the Camelot Kings. Gold Fury is up. Is it pulled? Yes, it is by the Atlantis Leviathans. Rongyu jumps on through. Panatom and Zapman doing it quickly. And look at the icons on the minimap. Nothing. Maybe a rotation in late from Big Man Tings, but it will be just that. It will be late. And Gold Fury goes to the Atlantis Leviathans 10 minutes in.
Yeah, maybe not 3 Sentry Wards needed on the Gold Fury pit, but nonetheless, he still pick up the objective. The Leviathans able to strip that one away. They keep Shinto in the center of the map just to distract the Camelot Kings, thinking, no way, they're going for that objective with Uhl still here, with him being such a major part of their secure as well as their burn. So Big Man Tiggs communicates, hey guys, I've got eyes on Shinto, let's not concern ourselves too much, and maybe wrongfully so, as the Leviathans are able to pick up the first neutral objective of this game, and this is the winning line for them. This is what they've done in the last couple of matches. They desync these neutral timers. If now the Leviathans are able to head over towards the Pyromancer, clear that one out in just about a minute, it's going to be very hard for the Camelot Kings to reestablish their footing around these POIs.
And that would feel like double bad for the Kings, right? When you look at their composition, you got the Fafnir plus the double Hunters. You want to be doing these objectives yourselves. Windfire Wheels, that's on the wrong. You down, he will crash, and down he will go as the Camelot Kings isolate the Leviathan support. They're able to snag that kill. Coerce goes out onto everyone here for the Camelot Kings, but it looks like Shinto will be okay. Misses the axe, but has some damage over on the back end.
Now Panatom trying to re-engage the fight, but watches his tower fall down. 5 members of the Kings, they might have Yark.
Oh no, Yarkor, now he's left alone. The isolated targets of the Leviathans have just been swept by the wayside. The Camelot Kings knocked down tier 1, and it should be a Pyromancer for the Kings as well. So for the first time in like a game and a half, we're now seeing the Kings split these neutral objectives. They're at least able to grab the Pyromancer and a good gold infusion with the tier 1 in mid.
Great play from the Camelot Kings to recognize their damage output. Had they committed so much onto Rongyu and not gotten the kill, that would have been a completely different fight for the Kings. Instead, know exactly what they're capable of and optimize properly.
Zap in trouble. Gets slowed down by the Honey as Genetics is in on the chase, but it is just Genetics and Zapman, so it looks like Genetics going to make the purple buff annoying. Blue buff gets dropped down by Variety as Zapman sends Genetics running the other way. And if you buy enough time here, if you're Genetics, Netrioid is going to be able to close this gap. Zapman down beneath half HP, has beads, has his ultimate as well. Now the Banish is gone. Are you selling your life to secure your purple buff, and you will not even get that? Ultimate gets used, and purple gets dropped by the Camelot Kings.
Great disarm from Genetics. Zapman uses the Banish to try and just burn down the purple buff and disengage. Genetics drops the disarm the second he comes out of that Banish and forces the Valkyrie's discretion off of this Freya. So now Zapman moves out on not only the farm of his buff, but one of his best defensive tools. This could open the door for Captain Twig to start rotating over.
Could it open the door to Panatom, though? The Erlang Shen rotates onto the left side of the map. Genetics uses the last bit of mana he's got to jump away. Banish kind of counteracts with the 9 turns blessing there. Sanctified Field goes down, and that is the escape button, but Zapman sticks around. He takes so much damage. What are you doing there? Zapman gets deleted by Netrioid. Panatom sticks around as well. Genetics transforms, but it's the transformation from Panatom that should get him out alive. But Captain Twig, he's got something else in mind. Netrioid's got a double. Captain Twig adds one as well, and the Camelot Kings are here to play.
Disrespectful play from the Leviathans to step up to that tier 1 tower line. The Camelot Kings respond in numbers, take the tier 1 in their own right, and maybe even potentially looking towards this tier 2.
Camelot Kings have shown us now that they want to compete with this Leviathans team. They have a hefty lead, hovering right around that 3,000 gold mark. 13 minutes in, these two teams exchanging haymakers with one another, and the gold lead will grow further as the left side tier 2 goes down. There'll be a Pyromancer up in a couple of minutes. Gold Fury will be up before that. And now, Myth, you get this situation where the Camelot Kings are in control with this objective burn composition.
And now, as you said, for the first time this set, the Camelot Kings in a commanding position with desynced neutral objectives, maybe coming back to bite the Leviathans.
Variety has established some control on the right as well. The Achilles, outside of some presence there, some ganks on the right side, haven't seen much. Sent Variety's way. Feels like a matter of time before we see what happens when the Soul Invaders rotate into these fights. That's a Lord of the Afterlife used by Yarkor. Med has already been used as well. Can Variety deal enough damage to get Yarkor down within execute threshold? Looks like Yarkor has something else in mind. Now, will Variety stick around too long? That's the big question. Fatal Strike, it's good!
Wow!
Get Variety the solo kill on the right side of the map in the second charge. That'll be used to disengage Leviathans desperately now. Watch for the hammer. Shinto sends some auto attacks Variety's way. Panatom weasels on in. Doesn't have the pin, but should have the damage. Jump through from Rongyu, brutalizes there. But we have spent a lot to get the return kill on Variety. Gets worse. Oni Fury here for the Kings.
The Leviathans have to stick around on the right side of the map. That overcommitment onto Variety to get that return kill needs to be matched with something else. A tier 1 tower helps out a fair bit to offset the gold output of getting the Fury on the other side for the Camelot Kings. Maybe even a little bit more with this heavy grouping, but now the Leviathans, they're knocking on the door a little bit too long. The Camelot Kings have already reset, and the Levi's are still deep on their side of the map.
The Leviathans are still here. Certainly there's no world where we're looking at a tier 2, right? I mean, the Leviathans are just behind the Kings at this point. We need more time to get into the game. Rangi will be ulted here by Captain Twig, and there's a Sanctified Field waiting on the other end. Down, the Fenrir will crash, and Netrioid adds his third of the game.
Fire?
Is it an immediate FG pull? Fire Giant says yes, come on, bring it on. The Camelot Kings not so sure just yet. These are the moments where these games can turn around.
This is dangerous. The Camelot Kings are still healthy, but they've already utilized a lot.
Sash hits from Captain Twig and is on to Panatom this time. Yarkor's got the tether out onto the Naja, but the Naja will back away just fine. Yarkor not looking all that tanky right now. Now Zapman has been left alone. Valkyrie's discretion gets used. Netrioid wants to run down the solo kill on left, but watch out. The rest of the Leviathans are here.
And the Camelot Kings go ahead and reset themselves all the way back to the Fire Giant. The Leviathans TKO'd. This one's going the way of the Kings. Great play to force out the Leviathans. They did not leave it up to risk. They only generate threat by initially pulling the Fire Giant. The Leviathans are forced to respond in numbers, and Yarkor is not tanky yet. He can't walk in. Zapman goes up into the air and doesn't even fire a return shot. He's so focused on escaping the dive of the Camelot Kings. The Kings, they're not happy to go down 3-0. They're going to force this one further on, as long as the Leviathans don't get any say.
Looks like we've got ourselves a set here, Mifflin. Yarkor has looked the opposite of tanky here as of late. The Osiris has been far from the raid boss that we've seen Osiris be so far this weekend. And now, with a hefty gold lead and Fire Giant on 5, Camelot Kings have 2 exposed Phoenixes.
Well, so it's all about who are they isolating, who are they applying this Ragnarok to, whether or not Panatom is able to create space with Yarkor, and then allow these single target damage dealers of the Leviathans to hit these targets. Whereas the Camelot Kings, double hunter composition.
Whoa, that's a lot. Banish onto Twig. The last tower shot's not there on the other end. Panatom chasing him down. Sanctified Field takes it to go. Finally, Twig goes down. Both junglers out of the start of this fight. But Rongyu, has he done too much? The answer is no. Not just yet. But Variety's got the stun. Rongyu will live. Yarkor's alone with 4 members of the Camelot Kings, but it's a jump back in. The banish, it's big from Zapman, but you need more damage onto the frontliners. The stinger goes out. It's Variety and Netrioid on the disengage. 1 for 1. Both junglers gone.
But that's a huge win for the Leviathans. Zapman and Shito still hovering nearby. If the axe connects from Shito, he can shut him down. Hail arrows, not enough damage to take out Genetics, but the Camelot Kings would have loved to be able to stick around a lot longer in that engagement. Great defense from the Leviathans. An overextension from Captain Twig cost the Kings a lot of their power play.
And if that is positioning of the Leviathans right now. Fire Giant is up in 10 seconds. We know how fast the Camelot Kings can do this objective. They've got Fafnir, they've got Frenzy, they've got the team-wide Coerce, they've got Double Hunter, and the Fire Giant spawning right now. And the Atlantis Leviathans want nothing to do with it. Are they going to try to run down a Phoenix maybe in the meantime? The Kings can do this quickly. So the Fire Giant gets pulled by the Camelot Kings. It looks like there's going to be no defense from the Atlantis Leviathans, but now a couple members are going back. Are you hoping for
is this a bait?
A pick here on the left side of the map? Naja will be walking out of the base. It's going to be Captain Twig. Will the Mist do some work here? Yarkor heads back to base, and it is a play that is not to be. The Camelot Kings get Fire Giant on all 5, and the Leviathans open up a Phoenix on left, but that's it.
Curious positioning by the Leviathans. I got really excited how Zapman plays that one. He shows himself in the lane, just kind of teasing Variety. Hey, come here. Follow me into the jungle, because he'd already had his teammate, Zapman that is, set up in the jungle, in the lantern, waiting to see if maybe Captain Twig, maybe Variety steps too far forward. Had they done so, you strip Fire Giant off of a couple of those frontliners, makes it much harder for the Camelot Kings to siege out. So instead, it's a very safe play from the Kings. I'm not sure if they were privy to the fact that the Leviathans were set up in the jungle already, or if they were just playing cautiously nonetheless. But either way, I really like that from the Leviathans, because I don't love their odds in a Fire Giant fight, to be sure. Just not exactly where you want to fight, especially considering how strong Netrioid's ultimate is in these enclosed corridors.
Right.
So instead of just going towards farm or going towards the Fire Giant and trying to slow them down, the Leviathans pick up some farm on the map and open up the door for potentially a return kill.
Decent opportunity there for the Atlantis Leviathans, but now the Camelot Kings regain control, some semblance of control in this best-of-5 set, a must-win Game 3, which will be followed by a must-win Game 4, and then a must-win Game 5. There's the banish onto Big Man Tings, but there is no follow-up this time from the Atlantis Leviathans. BMT holds on to both of his actives. Camelot King starting to walk forward towards this left side Phoenix.
Man, Big Man Ting's so annoying here with the honey, but there's the transformation from Genetics. That's the go button.
And there's the frenzy, and whoa, that Phoenix is gone. Variety deals some damage to Yarkor on the front of this fight. but the Camelot Kings will disengage. That is a lot of utility, a lot of team fighting utility that the Camelot Kings use to get rid of that left side Phoenix.
Luckily, Genetics is to stay in the Dragon form for a pretty long time. Early cancel, actually. So it's going to be a more elongated fight around these next couple of Phoenixes. I'd expected to Genetics to just kind of stick around, try and force it while they still have that additional power spike, but instead, it's going to be a slow, methodical play here from the Camelot Kings. Nothing expended by the Leviathans. Every relic and ultimate still up, so the defense not necessarily weakened.
Outside of the Frenzy, every relic rather there for the Camelot Kings. The beads, the most important factor here. A banish followed by a runed stun by Rongyu, followed by a Ragnarok onto a beadsless target is a death sentence. Camelot Kings don't have to worry about that death sentence. That is not something they are on trial for just yet until those beads are gone. Twig eats the pin. Happy to do so. Gobbles it up, backs away with the rest of his team. Minions pouring down the left side of the map. The fire minions will be there shortly. You might have to separate it out now if you're the Atlantis Leviathans. Plenty of time though, Mifflin. Minute and 15 seconds left on the FG. Feels like you got one push in you.
And Genetics' ultimate is going to be coming up very shortly. Could be that the Camelot Kings are just waiting for that opportunity. With the minion wave pushed up so far on right, the Camelot Kings can't really split.
Zapman banish onto Variety. Is that your target? Yarkor follows up with the tether. Variety gets stunned down on the backside, but Fatal Strike gets out and alive at the Sanctified Field, surrounding the middle of this engagement. Big ultimate down from Netroid, used it defensively, but here come the Camelot Kings right down Main Street. All eyes on the mid lane Phoenix.
The Leviathans utilize everything to try and finish off that kill into Variety, and were unsuccessful in doing so. The only one who has ultimate is the Stand Switcher on the side of the Leviathans, so that's nothing. The team fight is lost to the Order side, and the Camelot Kings very patiently play around those cooldowns. The second Genetics ultimate comes back up, they start to re-engage, and from there, they take out the mid Phoenix, left Phoenix stripped away much earlier, and backup doesn't really necessarily need to be there for these sieges to go well. They drop Variety low. That's because Variety's allowing you to hit him. He's in your back line for a reason. Genetics has been taking a fair deal of the damage and stealing away the attention of the Leviathans, but Big Man Tings and Netroid have gone unscathed in these engagements. This is the first time we've seen the Leviathans group up this heavily for a Fire Giant defense, though. Maybe some steal potential, maybe some team fight if they can catch someone straggling.
Yeah, but you got to make your decision at some point here if you're the Leviathans. You got 2 Fire Minion waves on your doorstep in the mid lane. You got 1 over on left as well. That'll reach your base here at some point. And maybe even smart here from the Kings. The Pyromancer's up. This one's quick. This one's easy. But look at this grouping.
They're on a
the
ward.
Leviathans around the backside of the Fire Giant pit. But that is something the Camelot Kings know of. That Fire Minion wave is going to reach the Titan right now. Your left side Phoenix is going to get taken down by that Fire Minion wave in just a minute. That Fire Giant went down way too quickly, and what's most important, Camelot Kings use none of their burn to get it done. Rongyu has got to get out. He's got to get out alive. You hope you can save your left side Phoenix. You can, but you lose a little bit of Titan health in the meantime.
Nice try from the Leviathans, but a great ward from Captain Twig spots out that 5-man grouping, and the Camelot Kings, they just elongate that fight. They say, hey, we're not going to pull the fire until your base is being invaded.
It's a 5v4 right now is Panatom is all the way on the left side of this fight. The other 4 members of the Leviathans grouped up around the right side Phoenix. The Camelot Kings need this one. Variety needs to stay alive, though. Those are the tethers out. Oh, but Captain Twiggy's gone back in on a Zapman, and Zapman barely stays alive. Oh, he will. He'll end up surviving, but he is TKO'd. He has got to leave this fight.
Zapman calls the bluff, holds onto his bead, so Captain Twig finds a different target, and it's the Kings going in.
Oh, Sanctified Field down. Netroid rampaging through the end of this game. The Kings have the damage. They've got the legs underneath themselves. All 5 members rallying around the Titan, and this is an afterthought. The Camelot Kings likely pushing us on to a game 4, but Panatom stays in it. The Kings have another couple members alive, and the Camelot Kings will send us to a game 4.
That is
turning those picks into opportunities to play the map. And when we saw one T1 structure go down, suddenly the T2's taken. They just weren't really taking pauses in between their aggression. They were immediately looking for the stuff after the stuff, essentially. They just took structures, they took objective play, and I think that they took very smart fights that led into great picks for the team.
In Game 1, we saw this Oleron get handled a little bit better. This time around, though, Netroid just has a lights-out game. I mean, a 3.25 KDA. And honestly, and I'm going to have to throw Zap under the bus a little bit, it felt like some of the whoops were helpful as opposed to hurtful.
Yeah, the CC chains between the Leviathans, they weren't what we saw with that Ganesh and Erlang in the previous game, where people were able to move in team fights, which was pretty nice for the Camelot Kings. I think the side lane switch-ups were really, really good here for the Kings. They get rid of the RTO, and Variety has a much better game. They get rid of the Sol, and Netroid has a much better game. So I think those are 2 things that they should keep going with as they go forward in this set.
And being able to finally limit down some of the success, especially in the duo lane for the Leviathans. And just fine kills. I mean, there were things that just died incredibly quickly. Still, though, give some credits to the Leviathans. At the very end, there was like a small opening. If the Titan had like 1,000 more HP, they might be able to turn that around. Unfortunately for them, it doesn't, so they still have to fight back. Good news for Leviathans and Leviathans fans. They're still only 1 win away from being able to go to the finals. The Kings need to win 2 more games in a row to take that away from them. But this is a good start, Taco.
This is a very strong start, and the signs of life that we've essentially been waiting for from the Kings. It would have definitely been a little disappointing to see them fall 3-0 in the semis, because I think everyone can acknowledge the fact that they are certainly a better team than that. But more importantly, I think that it also just kind of showcases the mental fortitude right now for the CAMELOT Kings, because those games 1 and 2 were
if Naja makes it back through here for the Kings, we'll figure that one out a little bit later in the draft. Leviathans losing that game now opt for first pick. And that one's actually a little interesting. I mean, this has been nothing but the second pick winning so far today.
Yeah.
Well, in this set.
Yeah. We'll see what they can opt to get here as well. Kings, I don't know what the Leviathans will adjust in their draft. The Kings, the AMC that they managed to pick up last time, I think had a big impact. That could be something that Shinto will look to take away if it's available. Looks like the bans are going to be still sticking to the same themes. Tiamat not available, Umoja not available, probably a Hell ban will come from the Kings as well. And Leviathans, I think on this first pick side, you have a bit more flex potential on what you get rid of with the bans.
I know we keep saying that if Rongyu gets Umoja, it would just be absolutely devastating. And I still stand by that sentence, but I also kind of want someone to forget it. Like, I want to see it, just a little bit of me. Maybe that's just not going to be happening throughout this weekend. We'll have to figure that out, depending on whether or not this is their last set. Naja Taco gets banned out here. Last time around, it was Tiamat, Khepri, Artio, but they don't want to deal with that again.
No, I think the sashes were the more problematic feature than the actual ultimate itself, because you just never really know about the follow-up damage that's going to be coming through, and I think that was the primary issue for the Leviathans. They were just getting bursted so fast on their back line that it never really gave them much opportunity to react. And even Rongyu and Hardcore, I think that they definitely struggled trying to work around that Neja, the slow as well from that ring toss. But seeing the Erlong adjustment is definitely pretty interesting, given the fact that beneath them is liked running it so far this set. But I love the fact that the Leviathans take Amuz and Cobb, because last time it was Olaran and AMC that made its way into the King, so now they only get one of those 2 pieces.
Well, Khepri has been banned every game away from the Kings here. Still available. Artio gets locked in. That was a ban from the Leviathans last time around, and before that, Hardcore was playing it as best he could. And this feels like already a pretty good start, although a different look for them. They get the Olaran back, so it feels like you've got 2 pillars now across the map, Hazer.
Yeah, I like this so far by the Kings. They don't get the AMC, which they had in mid last time. I would like to see Big Man Tings go back towards a Hunter, go back to something pressure-oriented in the mid so that they can contest this early game a little bit more and not get run over like they did in the first 2 games. But Artio away from Hardcore, Olaran back for Netruid. He just had a fantastic game on it. I like the start of the draft.
And they already got rid of the Soul. You had highlighted that being a part of the problem, right? It's not just can we get the Olaran, it's also can we shut down Zap? And so far the answer is yes. We'll see what he decides to play. The Freya hit decently hard late game, Taco, but did not find a lot of the kills that were necessary to make it look as good as it could have.
There's just so much to cater to for a Freya, and it's so much of an accommodation that at times it can even trap your team into kind of focusing too much into trying to prioritize the setup for that Freya, that you get a little bit lost as far as what else is happening throughout the team fight. And I think the Kings were definitely taking full advantage of that, but having this Fafnir now as an adjustment alongside of the Freya, I think that is a little bit more consistent setup for her, as opposed to just having to rely on that Erlong knockup.
It's a lot of fun to see what these teams are going to be able to do. Khepri gets locked in here. Now that's something that is even better for the Kings. When we go back to I guess Phase 3 playoffs, Hazer, like that was one of like the things they wanted to hammer home. If they got Khepri, it almost felt like a guaranteed win. But we've seen him dealt with a little bit better, I think, this weekend when he has made it through.
Yeah. I mean, he brings a lot of pressure in the duo lane early. That passive as well as the 2, great for the laning phase. Just means you take a little bit less poke with the shield coming up there, and the 2 just a great ability for clearing waves. Khepri, as he goes on through the game, you have to be very, very clean with your target selection on those ults and make sure you don't get CC'd yourself. You've got to watch your own positioning, because if you're getting dived, you can go down and you got to make sure that you're keeping an eye on all of your team's positioning at the same time, which is no mean feat.
Taco, I can't count the amount of times we've seen like a really clustered group fight, and then that Scarab's Blessing goes on like just the wrong guy, and you feel absolutely atrocious about it as a support player. The bans that come through, Cerberus, and then Neath on the other side, trying to control big man teams.
Big man teams, I think, should definitely be the priority focus here, especially since you already see the Ola run locked in. I wouldn't be surprised if a Medusa were to follow suit, but have to remember, Tings still has that on her in the back pocket, I think, and could definitely be a warranted pick, because if you want to look for some 1v1 potential, well, actually with the Chiron being the elimination choice, then I think that Medusa a little bit more likely to kind of surface here. But also, I kind of want to see a Cabrakan for the Leviathans. I'm not going to lie, I think that that could be an incredibly strong pick with a lot of lockdown potential against the top 3 right now from the Kings.
Feels really good. You called for the Medusa. Medusa does get locked in. We'll see if the Cabrakan comes true as well over here for the Leviathans. But the Medusa, honestly, maybe feeds into that Cabrakan even more so, right? Someone who's even easily locked down alongside the rest of the team. But we've got a little bit of anti-heal. The Chiron was something we saw perform really well earlier, Hazer, for the Leviathan, so that makes sense to get rid of the ban. But, I mean, for big man things, is this going to be enough of a high performer?
Medusa, I mean, we've seen it do really well in the dual lane so far, both in the event leading into this one and the SWC, but I'm not sure we've seen too much high performance Medusa in the mid lane, honestly. I think Shinto himself ran it in the play-ins, didn't go the best, and I haven't seen it really perform in mid. It seems like it's kind of bottom tier when it comes to these Hunters mids, ones that are viable, going towards the lower end. I definitely think Big Man Tings would have been looking for that Neath were it available, but a great ban out by the Leviathans forces him down onto this Medusa.
Already the dual lanes at least know their opponents. Mid lane knows their opponents. We'll figure out what Panatom's going to go in the jungle. Taco, I'm really, like, ever since you mentioned it, now all I can think about is how great walls would be. And unfortunately, the Fafnir's there, so Ymir probably disappears. Nemesis is the go-to here. And it's something, again, it's not outlandish for Panatom to play. But realistically, when I'm thinking of even the top 5, I'm not sure that I'm hitting Nemesis when I'm thinking of Panatom here.
Definitely not one that comes to mind immediately, but this is just a kind of feast or famine type of draft from the Leviathans, because when you see a Nemesis and a Camazotz alongside of that Fafnir, the crowd control definitely extremely limited here from the Leviathans in comparison to this double Guardian frontline that the Kings have opted for with the Khepri and Artio. But on the bright side, I do think that there is plenty of outright burst from the Leviathans, and I guess the main concern now is how strong can genetics perform on this Khepri, because there isn't really anything to stop that Khepri from launching the Scarab's Blessing throughout these team fights.
Camazotz has been struggling, though, from what we've gotten to see. And, you know, you look at the Khepri, and, like, everybody here can kill a single target a lot quicker than some people can react. But Camazotz has been in this kind of, like, topsy-turvy. If he has his ult forced away from him, everything seems to fall apart. If he's able to actually use it for an engage, that's when things go cleanly. We'll keep our eyes on that for the Leviathans.
I share the concerns with the deaths that the Leviathans really are kind of struggling a little bit with hard CC. They don't have a whole lot. I mean, they broke it down. It's Banish, it's Fafnir Hammer, and, I don't know, like a cripple from Shinto, a slow from Yarkor, a couple of slows from Panatom. So I think this is a draft that really would benefit a lot from having an early game lead, but each one of these individual pieces of the draft is late game slanted. You don't pick Freya for the early, you don't pick AMC for the early, you don't pick Nem for the early. Whereas on the other side, the Camelot Kings have got a very strong early lane bully with Medusa in mid. You've got Artio that should be able to hold her own in just about every single matchup. And the second that Captain Twig takes over to 5, my man's just fear no evil.
Wrong, you rooted in place. The level 2 burst from Netrioid is big. It will be a med heal on the other end. That'll keep the Fafnir a little bit sustained up in lane. Not much. That med more kept him alive than did much sustaining. Keep him relevant in this lane. Zapman steps forward, jukes out the root. Would have been at least beads, you'd imagine, for Zapman. Had that root connected. Netrioid gets this Olaran back myth, which admittedly is pretty surprising. Looked fantastic in game number 3. One of the main reasons the Camelot Kings were able to win. Gotta be an answer for the Leviathans this game to avoid going on to a game 5.
Yeah, maybe you have Nemesis rotate over, but she has to be point blank to apply her damage, and Netrioid, obviously Sanctified Field, one of the best self-peel tools in the game, matched up with a knockup built into Olaran's kit, means that Nemesis is going to have a very hard time applying that damage. The best dive tool that the Leviathans have got to deal with Netrioid is Yarkor. This Camazotz with Bat Out of Hell essentially invalidates Sanctified Field, but Yarkor's on the opposite side of the map. It's going to be a long time before these two guys butt heads. Could be that the Leviathans try and utilize some early pressure around the Gold Fury, maybe try and take their fights there early on and have Yarkor make that massive rotation, but we haven't seen that style from them so far this weekend.
Man, that is just obnoxious, that combo. Zatman doesn't take as much damage as I thought he was going to. Still takes a little bit of a burst there. Shinto versus Big Man Tings, double physical hunters in the mid lane. Haven't seen the Big Man Tings we expect so far in the 3 games that we've seen. Showed up a little bit more in game 3. I talked about the consistency and the high level of play and the centered around Big Man Ting's playstyle that we've seen. As a red buff looked at by the Camelot Kings jumps out. Is Captain Twig? Is there a chase to be had here? Stun onto Yarkor, med used. I think that likely spells the end of this engagement.
Yeah, meditation just says, hey, you may have liked your odds in this fight. I know Twig's jump isn't coming back up for about 10 seconds, but he's healing. He's getting mana, and well, you've already expended a lot of your resources on the Leviathans chasing out. So the Camelot Kings are forced to utilize that defensive relic, but off the back of a blue buff invade, I'm sure they're fine with it.
All of these roots and follow-up damage from Netdruid have been connecting so far in this lane. It's a great trend for the Camelot Kings. Should that continue out throughout the rest of this game. Wonder how the Medusa mid looks here, Miff. You know, we've seen Medusa plenty.
Oh my god.
Another burst of damage. It's another med used by Rangyu to sustain up the Leviathan's dual lane here. That has just been connecting way too much right now for the Camelot Kings. Every single root, it feels like, has been on point. What's our, Okay,
dude,
come on!
Leave him alone!
Come on! We get a word in edgewise here. Goodness, genetics. Hitting them all. The Medusa mid, though, I think very, very interesting. We've seen Medusa plenty of times now over the last couple of days.
Cooldown. He has applied a lot of healing so far, but maybe not of his own volition. The Camelot Kings putting a lot of pressure on him and his teammates.
Yarkor jumped on by Variety here. Should be enough for the Camels, especially with Bat Out of Hell. Now you get to this point in the lane, Myth. Haven't seen much early gank pressure put on Yarkor or Variety really this set. We've seen a little bit of fighting here on right. Largely centered around the blue buff, jungle invades, things like that. As Zatman is abducted back once more. Double banish, perfect. Valkyrie's Discretion on the other end. Is the damage there? The Sanctified Field sure is. And Netroid walks down Zatman with genetics and grabs first blood here in a pivotal game 4. Will it immediately be given back? Not yet. Variety sustains, but Yarkor puts him in the dirt.
Captain Twig, no leap available, but Yarkor not willing to continue out that chase. Maybe had the rest of the Leviathans had Rangyu been a little bit closer, there could have been an opportunity to continue that fight. Instead, they've got their eyes on the buff. They want to pick up the blue. The Camelot Kings, they've got their eyes on the larger prize, Gold Fury.
Yeah.
And it's just Shinto in range to put up defense? I don't think he will.
I would rather have Gold Fury, I think, Miff, than a blue buff on the right side of the map. Camelot Kings agree, and down the Gold Fury will go. Camelot Kings find an opening. It's on to Zatman, who did end up using his beads in that fight. Was a double banish. Great. Netroid did use his beads to come back down. Smith becomes a very important topic of conversation for this Camelot Kings team. When you talk about individual instances of CC that surround that Fear No Evil. If Twig is able to hit a big one, you only got 3 sets of beads right now. Bat Out of Hell, of course, will help out Yarkor a bit as this game goes on. But Twig could really set up well for the rest of his team. A chance to do so here. Valkyrie's Discretion out, and just the threat of a Fear No Evil will send Zatman to the sky.
He at least maintains his bead, so Fear No Evil going to be a little bit harder to come by, but look at this!
Oh my, Netroid engaged on the teleport go! Scarab's Blessing is down on a Netroid. Panatom takes the Fear No Evil, and he will take it to the grave. Netroid lets that Scarab's Blessing timeout. Petrify out from the mid lane. Rangyu burnt through by Big Man Tings. Camelot Kings with the Swift 2.
Man, Captain Twig holding on to that Fear No Evil comes up huge for his team. The Leviathans get caught in the jungle and caught between him and Captain Twig. That is tough stuff, man. You can't have that fight happen when Zatman has already utilized the Valkyrie's Discretion just for escape. Even though he holds on to beads, there's no survivability there.
Miff, talk about a swing in this game. We were even gold-wise just a couple minutes ago, and a couple kills now brings the gold lead right around 2,000. 3,000, excuse me. Rare off math by me. I'm normally on point. 3,000 almost exactly for the Camelot Kings with 2 kills. I mean, that is wild how this game has shifted. Nearly 3,000 experience as well.
Why do we see the Camelot Kings kind of expediting their own pace? They're playing around their power spikes. They realize that Big Man Tings is essentially massive right now. I would love to see the Camelot Kings start to shift their attention a little bit more so over towards the duo shortly. Leviathans taking note, pinging out the Gold Fury, realizing that it's under threat.
Metroid again, Myth. You're talking about the duo lane, picks up this sprint. Variety is tanky. Takes the Retribution, beads out as well. Transformation through from Rongyu. We are spending a lot
They
to
have to
tower
kill him.
dive this RDO. You need to get the kill. Fear no evil. Oh, it's big from Twig. Over to the left, and they still have not killed Variety. Variety will live. It's all for naught. The Leviathans dive the tier 1 tower, and the Kings will get the Fury on left.
Well, surely the Kings don't get the Fury and live, Dave. No, okay, it happened. Primal Fury fall down, and, well, the Camelot Kings looking pretty healthy on the opposite side of the map. The Leviathans needed to pick up that kill in a Variety. They realize that they're trading Gold Fury for this kill every single time. The Leviathans have timer on that objective. They had been pinging it out repeatedly, but despite all of it, Captain Twig, he's ready. He's there with the Fear No Evil, peels them out, and Variety says, hey, thanks. I'll be seeing you later.
They'll not clip in the back pocket of this Medusa. So on the ultimate cast, you're going to be shredding down some of these priority targets depending on who you're able to hit.
Rongyu picks up the Ankh in that second relic slot, so Variety can't really be choosy with who he's healing. Netroid has a self-heal as well, so those two targets going to be very easy to apply that Ankh passive to. Going to be pretty hard for the Camelot Kings to play around that.
Fury is low, but it's reset by the Camelot Kings. Not secure just yet. Leashed on back, but it will sustain itself back up to half HP.
Full.
The Leviathans rotating into this fight as well. Are we feeling comfortable enough to fight 5 versus 5 for an Oni Fury? 18.5 minutes into the game, when the Camelot Kings are as far ahead as they are, these types of fights can lose you a game. The Camelot Kings grab the Oni Fury.
Great ult.
It is ultimate out from Big Man Tings, and that slows down the engage. Panatom has used his as well. Looks like the Kings will get out, all 5.
Man, the Kings are playing so well around these objectives. The Leviathans were almost able to find a chase out on a Variety, but
Oh,
a great
double
peel
banish,
ult.
double banish. That's big from Satman.
Whoa.
Where's the engage? On the other end, Variety melted through the sanctified field. Are you kidding me? From Netroid. It is perfect, and it has slowed down the engagement. Rongyu wants more, though. He transforms.
Twig?
Fear No Evil down. Twig goes through. Scarab's Blessing awaiting on the other end, and it's great from Genetics. But watch
Massive
out, the
ult.
Leviathans have jumped back in. Shinto has one. BMT has the other. Panatom is alone in the back, and he will get out alive with 4 members of the Kings looking at him.
Man, the Kings just group up a little bit too hard, and Zapman puts the punish to him so easily. Now, can the Leviathans push it even further? Fire Giant might be on the table
Yeah?
here. They're resustaining with Med.
Big Man Tings can cleave out damage onto this FG. This is a 4 versus 3, a big one.
That's
The
fast.
Camelot Kings far and away ahead of this game. The Fire Giant down to half HP. Here comes Variety. Here comes
Coin
Genetics.
toss.
Fire Giant goes down. Big Man Tings finds the first kill. The Leviathans get the big objective, though. Zapman guns down Genetics on the front line. Variety
Still alive.
being whittled down by Shinto as well. And the AMC lives to the end. Panatom puts him in the dirt. Deicide, baby, for the Leviathans 20 minutes in.
I'm not even sure if you could call that a mistake from the Camelot Kings. The Leviathans make a miracle play around Zapman. Double banish, sets up for the dive. Scarab's Blessing used on Captain Twig, who decided to ult aggressively, so that resource no longer available. Panatom takes note, says, I'm going into your backline, and there's nothing you could do about it. The Leviathans dive a tier 1 tower, find a couple of picks, back up to the Fire Giant, leave it up to a coin toss, win the coin toss, and now they're pushing the tier 2. The Leviathans were essentially out of this game, Dave, just 20 seconds ago, and the Camelot Kings, they're still in the respawn.
This game is disgusting. Myth, we have not seen individually close games all that often this weekend. We have seen a lot of lopsided affairs that have maybe made for competitive sets. This is now the closest game I think we've seen all weekend
Back and
long.
forth.
Still, a gold lead for the Camelot Kings. It's got to be about cauterizing the wounds that you're going to sustain from the Fire Giant picked up by the Atlantis Leviathans. If you can come out of this Fire Giant power play somewhere close to even, maybe you consider it a win for the Camelot Kings. We've seen
Luckily-
some long FG dances, and these two teams have been just fine to buy their time. Wave control relatively even here as well. Left side of the map going to be crashing right around the mid. Mid lane pushed up against the Camelot Kings a bit, but there are no Phoenixes being threatened. The Fire Giant
That's
is
fast.
started, and it is going down quickly. The Camelot Kings are on it, but the Leviathans, they're here. The Leviathans are on it. The Camelot Kings are here to play as well, and it's immediate reset. But that gives you an idea of how fast this will go.
Yeah, the Leviathan's not going to leave it up to a coin toss again. They're not in a position where they have to. Instead, the Leviathans in a dominant position are going to look for the team fight beforehand. the Camelot Kings get to benefit from a fair deal of sustain built into their composition, mainly centered around Netriot on this Ola run.
Yep.
So the Leviathans, if they apply poke, fine. It's going to take a little bit longer for the Camelot Kings to sustain, but if the Camelot Kings apply poke, there's no team-wide healing on the side of the Leviathans, unless you count meditation.
Killing Yarkor is going to be a pain. He's got Bat Out of Hell, Bulwark of Hope, Caduceus Shield, Bruiser build, fully stacked Transcendence, Variety as well. Going to be difficult to melt down. The Soul Lanes, the mountains of health that you've got to work through. You would think it's the Fire Giant, but it's been anything but. Fire Giant fold yet again. It's only Zapman returning damage in, and back away the Camelot Kings do once more.
Now the Camelot Kings have really noticed that this Fire Giant will go down incredibly quickly. The Leviathans have forced back the Kings.
Whoa,
good banish.
It's onto Genetics. He does.
What? What?
Oh my god! Oh my god! That is gross! Yarkor says behind the Genetics. He is gone, and the Leviathans group up around the FG, and this FG is now an afterthought. As fast as Genetics just died, the Fire Giant will as well. The Leviathans as 5 grab FG in 27 minutes.
What happened? Who hit that guy? Genetics was there, and then he was not. I'm not even certain that he had access to his keyboard in that scenario. Was he able? Did he even have the frames available to use Scarab's Blessing? The cooldown would say otherwise. It is still up and available. 15 seconds left on the respawn. The Leviathans,
oh my
with
God,
Fire Giant on 5, they're going in.
Zapman has been on it. He wants a chance at a 3rd ring in a row. The Leviathans are 5 in the back.
Twig?
Fear No Evil held on to by
good.
Twig. Sends Wrong You off into the wall, but nobody is there to follow up the damage. The Leviathans regrouping, pushing back in. Sanctified Field down from Netroid, who is doing big damage numbers to the Leviathans. Bat Out of Hell, defensive from Yarkor. Genetics back from base, and the mid lane Phoenix will live.
But the left's tier 2 tower has already got minions knocking on the door. You've already lost Sanctified Fields and Fear No Evil. Those are your best defense tools on the side of the Camelot Kings, and the Leviathans have got the only ultimate they need to kill anybody on the map off of a banish. It was just Panatom who slams Genetics and removes that defense, and Panatom has got it available, as has Shinto. So if Zapman can find yet another whoop, he could just easily win the game if he connects it with a priority target, or even Genetics, if I'm to be fooled by that last fight.
I have never seen what is supposed to be a tank die that quickly, and it has opened up the door to the Leviathans to move on to the SMITE World Championship Grand Finals. Wrong You flips over in a Dragon stance, spreads the coerce out to Wrong You and Zapman. Camelot Kings are here as 5. Fear No Evil, 3/4 of the way there. Variety, he is ulted up, and that's big. If he can disengage here, wait out that retribution, Camelot Kings might be feeling good.
The Camelot Kings have got their cooldowns up very shortly. Captain Twig going to have Fear No Evil available, and the Leviathans take note. They will not stick around yet again, but they've got so much time to play with on this Fire Giant power play. Still 2 minutes with fire around their belt. Pick up a Primal Fury. Take that one back home with you. But the Camelot Kings have proven to me that their base defense is incredibly strong.
But of course you'd love to have a better idea of where all those Leviathans are on their side of the jungle, because it's been the Leviathans posturing a bit more aggressively.
Only 3 wards in the pocket of the Camelot Kings right now. No wards established on the Fire Giant pit proper, but over on the Leviathans, I refuse to do the actual math, so instead it's 4 Sentry wards available to them. The Camelot Kings just
8 total.
Not really looking great in the economy right now, haven't got the vision advantage, and fighting into vision already established by the Leviathans is going to be very hard. Essentially, the Camelot Kings have to drop wards as they walk in, and, well, they're already out of them.
Everyone check your pulse. This is a big moment here. Camelot Kings going home, or we go on to a Game 5 if this fight is convincing enough. Remember last time, Genetics stepped a toe out of line and turned to dust.
Is it going to happen again?
It is happening again. Variety banished, but no.
Wow.
His health bar is there.
Twig.
But Twig uses Fear No Evil, and that is massive going into the Fire Giant fight. If you're the Kings, you got to win it with that one of your biggest tools.
Twig saved the game. I mean, Variety's dead there, but Twig's Fear No Evil separates.
God, the banish has connected again onto Variety. There is no Fear No Evil this time, but Big Man Tings uses a Petrify, another defensive ultimate from the Camelot Kings, and here's the transformation from the Leviathans.
Meditations resustain a fair deal. Wrong Use deceptive range can find a stun.
Banish.
It's Variety.
Oh, banish onto Variety. Variety will live on though. Sanctified Field drapes on over the back line of the Leviathan. Scarab's Blessing's big. Big Man Tings is bigger. Wrong You, he's the first to go down. Yarkor desperately clinging to a kill, but they won't die. Yarkor ends up grabbing the first. It's Panatom on the back who's got to blink away away from Captain Twig. Zapman gunning down. My man's playing frontline. Big man Tings comes up. Big man with 2. Shinto whittled on down on the back line. Variety has got to go big. Panatom, he's got a triple. D aside for the Leviathans, and they got their eyes on the mid lane.
Panatom acts as a lightning rod for aggression.
Oh, they
The
know
CAMELOT
it.
Kings
They know
got lost in the team fight. You cannot ignore Zapman. You cannot ignore Freya. He will decimate you. You say he's acted as a frontliner? He is a hot knife through butter. Best of luck. The Kings, they're dead.
No chance. The Atlantis Leviathans know it. We will have a showdown of back-to-back-to-back potential world champions. Zapman again finds his way to the grand finals, this time against his old teammate in Paul. The Leviathans get it done.
Pressure that was kind of building up for the CAMELOT Kings, because we saw a lot of success, I think, with Captain Twig's Fear No Evils earlier on in this match. I think he did a great job, honestly, at saving the Kings in a lot of these earlier team fights, but eventually the pressure just overrides, and I think that was the one thing that was certainly true about this Leviathans draft. It was just so all or nothing, but the all that you had to battle into was insane burst damage.
It was a fight in mid there that then translated directly into this Fire Giant fight that we're watching, which was a coin flip. If we're being honest, the Leviathans are really lucky to have gotten away with that one, and then they get a couple of kills on top of that, and that opens up the conversation. But then it takes them another Fire Giant, and then a third Fire Giant before they're able to get it done. The kills start to really roll up into their favor. The Kings' defense was phenomenal for a while there. Panatom, I didn't realize that. That's when him and Shinto stood up, and they just stopped playing the game for a little bit. Again, before the Titan fell. That is twice now in 2 days that they've done so. But Hazer, it's deserved because of how happy this team is going to finals.
Yeah, I mean, if you know the game's over, if you know you've done it, why not celebrate a little bit early, you know? Get a little stand-up, stretch out. I'm sure they didn't mean anything bad
Look,
by
man,
it.
I've got like 60 seconds before anybody respawns. We're fine.
Yeah, exactly. They knew they had it.
You can see the damage numbers, 23K put up there by Shinto. And honestly, for the rest of his team, I mean, he's 7,000 up on anybody else. Nobody coming close enough for him. And then 1K back Leviathans.
Yeah, they were controlling the pace of the entirety of the early portions of this set, man. I mean, it was just clean play across the board. Yarkor looks nearly unkillable the entire time. Panatom facilitating the entirety of the map. Shinto doing Shinto stuff, and if you guys are unfamiliar with what Shinto stuff is, it's PvE. My man was just ahead of everybody else on the map, and there just really wasn't an answer from the CAMELOT Kings early on. I feel like maybe they stuck with this hell a little bit longer than I would have liked. They go towards it in Game 1 and then back towards it in Game 2. Game 3, I mean, like, I don't know, Kings kind of resurged there.
They get kind of research there. I also forgot that Game 1 was 15 minutes, 17 minutes. Let's get it the minute marker correct. Of even gameplay, nothing really standing out. Nobody getting a lead. Nobody really pulling away with a team fight. There wasn't a first blood. And then all of a sudden, the Leviathans, J-Mac, just rolled over the Kings, and that momentum did not stop there.
Gross.
Typically, maybe you hit the pause, Game 2's a reset. No, they continued that in Game number 2.
Yeah, no, that might have been the slowest 17 minutes of your life watching that game into the fastest 5-minute rush of literally everything happening at the end of Game number 1. Look, all I'm going to put out here, you know, you're looking at Game 1, Game 2 here. I'm looking at Yarkor, I'm seeing him on the RDO, and I'm just remembering back to the days where at the end of Phase 2, and pretty much literally through all of Phase 3, this god was banned away from him because he just wins on this god. And the fact that he got so many comfort picks throughout the entirety of this set, and especially in Games number 1 and 2, it's just unreal how much he was able to do on that god. Wrong you with the infinite space creation on this Ganesh. It just felt like there was no way for the CAMELOT Kings to get in and break through this front line to get to the back line in these first couple of games. Luckily, they were able to find that answer in Game number 3, though it was still a very tight battle here. But I agree with Mifflin. I think that the Kings just took too long to get off this hell.
Yeah, and you can see a lot of this, even when there's a highlight. Look at the kills here. When Twig is finally able to get something done, tries to kill off Zap, and is able to do so, but he gets the second kill versus the 11 on the other side. That game ends up going towards the Leviathans anyway. Here is where things really started to get turned around. It started in this duo lane, Mifflin. A lot of good that could occur for the Leviathans, but the Kings were really able to ramp this one up. We got to see a lot out of variety, but it's the sashes from Twig. The Naja, despite not necessarily being a lot of the favorite for Assassins, really came up big in this game.
And he's still not a favorite for Assassins. Twig was playing a tank. He was saying, I'm going to land Windfire Wheels. Please, God, when they land, kill them, and I'll try my best to walk away. And for the most part, it worked out in Game 3. But if we're talking about the Leviathans in the third game of this set, I think you could really just call it, all right, Zap, get your practice in. Let's maybe land a couple of these whoops without, stopping these huge plays. A couple of times early on in Game 3, Zapman whoops, and Panatom just win 9 turns blessings the air. And I'm sure he's like, man, just wish Zap wasn't here. But all that practice accumulated, didn't it? And Game 4 looks a little bit different with that Freya. Look, the Leviathans have been shown that they can bleed, but not that much. Not at all. Maybe a paper cut here in Game 3.
Yeah, they're now 6-1 this event. 3-0 against the Bolts yesterday. 3-1 the Kings here. And even the 1 looked pretty solid for a lot of these fights. This Ola run did get a little out of hand towards the end of it, though. It was something that was highly coveted for the Kings. They try going back to it. They tried playing it in Game 1, didn't work then. Try playing it in Game 3, works out well. So it's a 50-50 coin toss. Starts out looking pretty solid. Well, that's how a lot of this game went in Game 4, J-Mac, for the Kings. Early on, very solid. Late game, it was whoop into. All right, what do you got?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was chilling earlier on in the green room, kind of off to the side. I'm like, man, they really don't have a whole lot of CC on the side of Leviathans. They have a single-man stun with Wrong U. They have a cripple from Shinto with the Stinger. That's not really a hard CC. And then they've got the whoop from Zapman, which should only be hitting one person at a time at best. And I kind of cursed the Kings by saying that because Zapman was finding multi-man whoops throughout so many of these fights. But the biggest problem that the Kings really had was it was just whoop into death. Anybody that Zapman was picking up with that ability, it was just instant death on landing. The Mantle of Discord that was coming out from this Leviathans team was putting in more work than any Mantle I have ever seen in my entire life.
The team that everybody was admittedly expecting to make it to the finals is there.
Yep.
And the Leviathans, which if you had asked me at the beginning of this, I'd probably have said, yeah, I think them, but realistically I also would have then followed up with, but really there's 6 teams I believe can win Worlds, and then gotten into this wild tirade. It is such a fun bracket to watch, but Mifflin, this is going to be a huge set.
Man, it's just so exciting. You've got the three-peat, just 1v1 between Paul and Zapman. You've got just this awesome, amazing mentality from the Leviathans. The Cinderella story, as Oxy said, starts in the minors, goes up to the pros, struggles a little bit there, and then has continually striven to improve week in and week out. I think it just speaks to the mental fortitude. I love hearing from these guys on the Leviathans saying, Oxy says, and I quote, "It is a natural progression. We are going to continue to get better until we are the winners." And that is a champion's mentality through and through.
All of it culminating tomorrow in what will be not just the SWC finals, but you're going to have the end of the Community Clash tournament there at 11:30, immediately into the finals of the Content Creator Cup. Some charity is going to be getting a hefty donation, and they're going to be happy about it. And then a nice Season 9 Conquest map show match. If you missed it on Wednesday, or if you just want to see more about this, it is going to be a great showcase for the map. Plus, get to see some familiar faces from years past, as well as, I'm going to spoil this one, but I believe it's supposed to be cast by Hindu and Hazer, so that's going to be really,
what a treat.
Really fun to watch. That's going to go into the Golden Bolts Awards show, and then 3 p.m., you do not want to miss it. The Grand Finals, the Titans versus the Leviathans, and someone is going to lift that hammer, not just for the 3rd time, but for the 3rd time in a row, which is a big deal for these players. It's a huge deal for the league, and I'm just excited for it. Mifflin, any thoughts about the rest of the week, and admittedly, how the week's gone?
Listen, I know that the term three-peat gets tossed around a lot,